Khan openly demanded that he wanted a fair exchange for sparing Jeremiah Themis, the leader of the demi-human faction's life. Because even now, the domain of impartiality was still active, and the elf saint couldn't stop it. And the fact that Khan himself didn't even use his domain had left the peak 7th stage saint asundered and petrified. Since I'm sparing your life, inevitably allowing you to keep your and your entire faction's future in this empire intact, I want something of very equal value in return, stated Khan with cold yet calculative eyes. Swoosh! Suddenly, Khan summoned a foot-tall artifact out of his space ring. Shimmer! The aura emitted by this artifact almost blinded Jeremiah until it subsided slowly, revealing an artistic marvel. A massive sapphire crystal etched within a mirror with golden borders, majestic patterns, and embroideries that would bedazzle anyone at first sight, became visible to Jeremiah and the rest of the Rocco's empire watching the broadcast. This is an ancient rank artifact created by a very powerful being. Someone that even people like you and me can't even dare to face, said Khan in a resolute tone. It's used to create a contract between two parties, whether willing or not. He iterated and then continued, you will be signing a contract with me, a contract that is similar to a blood oath token contract. Spoke Khan. A contract that states that you, Jeremiah Themis, the leader of the demi-human faction, now forfeit your life to me and become my subject. And not only would you do that for yourself, but also bring the entire faction and all of its members under my reign. He declared in an authoritative tone. What? What nonsense is that? Do you think you can make me your slave just because I lost? Asked the elven saint, thoroughly enraged. In response, Khan didn't speak. He simply put Muramesa on his neck again while Gungnir was aiming at his heart. Want to see if I can survive with my neck cut down and my heart getting stabbed at the same time? Asked Khan while staring at the elf menacingly. Coercion and persuasion, they were some of Khan's strongest talents in this life. One could call him the hero of scams instead of hero of darkness based on the number of times Khan had scammed some of the strongest beings in Vantria. And Jeremiah Themis, who had already tasted death for an entire hour at this point, knew that this man was insane enough to actually do what he said. Wait! Stop! I'll do it! Said the elven saint haphazardly. Good. Now drop your blood on the crystal, said Khan, and started chanting a spell. Similar to a blood-binding ritual that Albestros once performed for Khan, tying him to Lucifer and the Dracos armor back in the day, a similar scenario took place. Shing! A blinding white light shot from the artifact and reached high in the sky, like a beacon lighting up. To keep living, Jeremiah had basically turned himself into Khan's slave with this contract. Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha! Khan suddenly burst out laughing. You absolute moron! Do you even realize what you've done? Said Khan as he laughed uncontrollably. Soon, he started explaining what had just happened. It's called Stigmata of Bloodlines. It's not just an artifact to bind two people with a contract, but bind bloodlines of those two people, exclaimed Khan with an elated tone. Not only the one signing the contract, but anyone who shares their bloodline, whether they're children, blood relatives like uncles, aunts, or cousins, would also be bound by the contract. They too will become slave of the owner of the Stigmata of Bloodlines, making them the master of all their descendants and living blood relatives. Well, not just me but my future children and their children too, explained Khan with a shameless and unrestrained evil smirk. What? How is that even possible? Such an artifact doesn't exist in our empire, shouted Jeremiah, his eyes full of disbelief. Just because you don't know about something doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, said Khan, gloating after his scam became successful. Let me show you one more thing. He spoke, and the very next second, snap, Khan snapped his finger. Crack, shatter, crumble. Soon, the entire space within 30-kilometer radius started breaking, eventually destroying the domain of impartiality. You see, from the very beginning of our battle, I had the power to destroy your domain, proclaimed Khan in a kingly voice. This was another fact that was kept hidden till now. As for why, Khan had put the fear of death in Jeremiah's mind for an hour. And it was done for a reason, because if Khan had just done it very early, the seventh stage saint wouldn't be so submissive or terrified of him. Jeremiah would have most likely chosen death due to his pride rather than accept this single last straw of hope to stay alive by signing the contract. That was why Khan intentionally fell victim to the elf's domain, and then after learning about his powers, he planned this outcome on the spot almost instantly. And now, despite knowing the consequences that would basically turn him, his entire family, his blood relatives, and his whole clan into Khan's slaves for the rest of their lives, the seventh stage saint, who went from feeling invincible for centuries to a person feeling the scythe of the grim reaper over their neck, now traded their fates for his own selfish life. But don't worry, there is still a hope for you to break the contract, spoke Khan with a benign smile. Just like your law of balance, the stigmata of bloodlines also has a flaw. The main reason I used it on you instead of someone from your clan or family is because the target must be the strongest person, in your case the highest-ranked saint of that bloodline. Otherwise, the effect of the stigmata will not be able to overpower or affect the other members. The only way to overcome and break the contract is becoming strong enough so that the original contract's power can't affect you anymore, said Khan in a sly tone. So unless someone from your bloodline becomes an eighth stage, other than yourself of course, there is no other way to break this contract, revealed Khan. The light in Jeremiah's eyes completely diminished. It was nice knowing the limitations of the stigmata. It gave him some hope, but the only condition to break the contract took that hope away very quickly. What have I done? Why was I so afraid of death that I basically destroyed my entire bloodline's future and their very lives? What's even the point if I manage to live longer? The contract will remain even after I die. And unless someone becomes an eighth stage saint, it can never be broken, lamented Jeremiah as his sense of responsibility finally cleared his mind, bringing back his rationality. It was this moment, when Jeremiah Themis realized this one fact about their current predicament, that he just made a deal with the devil. The entirety of the Rakos Empire was shaken to its core. The battle between powerful beings, such as saints, was no different than witnessing the war between gods for the common people who couldn't use mana or had any fighting class, such as warriors or magicians. But not only did such godly beings show up in times of peril, the man whom they thought was dead, someone who could be considered their last bastion of hope, reappeared when they least expected it. This man not only took a stand for them with his allies, he faced one of the three most powerful beings of the Rakos Empire. But instead of being overwhelmed or putting a grand display of skills or nigh destruction, the battle was more akin to a war of attrition. The domain of impartiality was indeed a terrifying power that even those who couldn't use mana were able to discern how it would mean certain death if they ever faced it themselves. However, Khan Salvator, the one they now all hailed as their emperor, faced that power head-on and went as far as even gravely injuring himself for an entire hour. Billions of people who had joined the protest witnessed how he basically mutilated his own body again and again to the point that some wondered if he was a crazy psychopath. Yet many admired his decisiveness and indomitable will to do whatever must be done in order to defeat this titan of an opponent in front of him. And not only did Khan win as they watched through the holographic screen, he even made a contract with the enemy, making this historic entity that had been undefeated in the past 100 years into his personal slave. But what broke their sense of rationality was how diabolical and merciless their supposed savior was. Because the stigmata of bloodlines had a terrifying power that not only bound the owner and the target of the contract, but also their existing and future bloodlines together, basically making the owner and his future lineage into masters of the loser and his existing as well as upcoming descendants. This was in every sense peak level of slavery, as the fate of thousands of people was now to be slaves of a handful of people for God knows how long. The condition to break the contract in itself seemed nigh impossible from their perspective, as an eighth stage saint would be an existence that appeared rarely among a few centuries. The deal with the devil took place as the entire Rakos Empire watched with their eyes and mouths wide open. Jeremiah Themis, the elf who had lived for more than half a millennium, now flew in the sky, unable to recover from the shock. His action to keep his own life in the dire circumstances led to his biggest mistake in life. Elves were a prideful race, and a lot of them had a high affinity with nature and mana if compared to other species, such as humans or demi-humans. And now he ended up turning his clan, his people, and the entire faction into Khan's slaves. Soon, Jeremiah would be forced to keep his word and personally enact the rules of the contract. And even if he did something as killing himself, the contract would still not become void. All I wanted was to survive and break through to the next saint rank. But can I even afford to do that anymore? It took me 500 years to be where I am. Who else from my bloodline will ever have the chance to achieve even that? No, I can't even look in their eyes after what I've done. Thought Jeremiah, regretting his decision instantly. Now, since the people of the Empire are watching, here is your first job. Spoke Khan sternly. You will get the entire Department of Justice, all the branches of the Court of Law, and all the kinds of cases under the jurisdiction of these institutions to reopen all the cases that concern only the commoner classes of the Empire. Every trial that has traces of an unlawful verdict or chances of manipulation that stopped the real victim from getting the justice they deserved shall see another trial. And this time, not only your clan, but your entire faction of over 75 million people would help you achieve this feat within a month. Decreed Khan. What? That's impossible. It takes years to just get the verdict of a complex case. There are millions of cases already pending trial. How can anyone get it done in a month? Even if the manpower is increased, it will take at least a year, complained Jeremiah. Let me give you a little motivation. If you do it, you and your entire bloodline get to live. If you don't, then using the stigmata, your entire bloodline will die by this time next month. Is that good enough for you? Asked Khan with a threatening glare. This was the power of stigmata of bloodlines, an unimaginably powerful artifact that suddenly showed up on the scene. But how did Khan, who barely managed to create an ancient rank katana, Muramesa, get his hands on such a powerful tool? Even as a saint rank artificer with the unique class, Khan did not have enough experience or time to create such an invaluable object. As for Vildred, the Sage of Preservation, he was a Magiation class royal dragon. His expertise was spells, magic skills, and formations. Making an artifact of this caliber was beyond his capabilities as well. In reality, Khan got his hands on this overpowered artifact just this morning before he went to visit the local tavern, where he talked with the bald old man while disguised as a thrall. The powerful being who created this overpowered ancient rank artifact called Stigmata of Bloodlines was none other than Argos Belmont, the Revenant Sovereign. People of the Rakos Empire, spoke Khan in a majestic tone, his voice echoing through the whole empire. The injustice you've faced till now shall exist no more. This is just one branch of society and government that has treated your lives unjustly. And I will keep working and fighting to make your lives better. My commands that you just witnessed are my first steps to change your lives and give you true equality. Together we will redefine our truth. Together we will change our destiny, said Khan as he declared domineeringly while gazing at the projection artifacts. This is my first decree. As your emperor, with close to 3 billion citizens acting as his witness, Khan made his first decree while purposely declaring himself emperor of the Rakos Empire. His edict, which specially focused on the commoner class of the empire, who had been systematically oppressed and snuffed out by the coalition of the government and the elites of society while masquerading as a democracy, made a huge impact on the entire population. Why? Because society always indoctrinates people to be obedient, lawful, moral, ethical, and righteous ever since childhood. Whether it's the schools, an academy, or mediums of information such as television or newspapers, it's all part of the system. On the surface, they preached about maintaining law and order, safety of the population, and a stable society. But the underlying truth was that it also made people subservient and reliant on those who governed them. And when people who had been accustomed to these laws and ways of life suffer from injustice or become a victim of a crime, where do they go? It's the court of law that promises justice and providence. But what if that institution in itself is corrupt and works at the whims of these elites and government officials instead of treating people fairly? Rules for thee, but not for me. That is how this institution of the government has always worked, whether it was Earth or the Rocco's Empire in Vantria. The number of people who had come here to seek just but were sent back empty-handed has been incalculable, while many who should be jailed for crimes have walked scot-free in society. A huge chunk of the population had suffered from this injustice for over a century, and thus, Khan's decree not only shocked them, but it also brought a great sense of relief to their minds. "All hail the Emperor Khan Salvatore!" shouted one of the spies with a loudspeaker artifact, his voice spreading in half a kilometer radius. "Hail the Emperor! Glory to the Rocco's Empire!" shouted another spy in a different part of the empire. Soon, thousands of such chants were spoken across the empire, leading to the billions of people ingraining those words in their minds. "All hail the Emperor!" shouted a bull-headed demi-human among the masses. "The Emperor is our savior!" shouted another enthusiastic citizen. To the people who had almost given up hope, these chants echoed with their contempt for the government and their joy after seeing Khan taking a stand for them. Millions of people belonging to different races, species, and parts of the empire collectively started chanting these exact slogans together. In many places across the nation, cities vibrated as if an earthquake was about to come, all because of his loud and wholehearted people who shouted Khan's name all together. It was right then, citizens of the Rocco's Empire, there is so much to do even now. This is just the beginning. But I will not rest until all of you are truly equal under the law and as living beings, so that you can be proud of being the citizens of this great nation again. And believe me, this was just one of the wins. We're going to keep winning. We're going to win so much that you'll be tired of winning," said Khan with a majestic yet confident expression. His handsome face and unshakable resolve etched into the people's minds so quickly that even those who didn't care about previous rumors of him being the chosen successor and the rightful emperor now started developing faith in him. "There are others I have to face and defeat, and do not be concerned. There is no way I'll lose to anyone in this empire," declared Khan with a light smile. "Tomorrow at noon, I will be making another announcement. Please look forward to it," spoke Khan, and his head turned towards Jeremiah Themis, who had now reverted to his elderly appearance. Khan then turned off the projection artifacts with the wave of his hand. "You better start working on my orders. Kill anyone, even if it's your kin, if they oppose my orders. Know that your clan, your faction, and the future of your descendants depend on it. Whether there will be a place for them in this empire or not in the new order will solely be decided on how efficiently you deliver upon my decree," spoke Khan in a domineering tone. "I'll do what I have to do," said Jeremiah with a crestfallen appearance. He knew that no opposition would change the outcome now that the contract was made. "Good. Now I'll go deal with the other two. Let's hope they're at least alive, knowing the people they are facing right now," he said with a mischievous smirk. "What do you mean? Are you not alone?" asked the elven saint. "Ha! I wish I were. But since we had to take down all three of you effectively and at the same time, the work had to be divided. Alas, be quaint knowing that they too must have suffered a similar and humiliating defeat. I now only have to get this stigmata of bloodlines and sign the contract with them too," said Khan with a sinister grin. "This demon, he's going to do the same to those bastards too. Is he planning to enslave their bloodlines and factions too?" thought Jeremiah, his entire body shocked from surprise. "Wait, who are those people? How can someone even handle peak 7th stage saints?" asked Jeremiah, because the other two faction leaders were no joke at all. Even he knew that he was the least violent one among the three because of his class. But the leaders of the pure blood and the neutral factions? They were outright bloodthirsty monsters. "Don't worry, the people they are fighting are even bigger monsters than them," replied Khan as if he had read Jeremiah's mind. "There was a time when I was at the mercy of the three factions who controlled this empire. I had to fake my death and leave this empire just to survive," said Khan with a stern expression. "Life has come back in full circles now, Because after I'm done, he clenched his fist and spoke in a menacing voice. You lot will be begging for my mercy. Khan sternly threatened Jeremiah Themis as he made his intentions known to the leader of the demi-human faction. And while doing so, he divulged the fact that he had 2 more entities taking care of the other 2 faction leaders. Just that only his appearance that was made public via a nationwide broadcast. As for the others, their fates would be no different. 10 minutes later, using his space overlord class, Khan teleported to the main headquarters of the neutral faction. A large 3-storied building that spanned 5 kilometers, facilitating thousands of faction members of various races, species, and clan backgrounds, came into sight. There were a lot of members gathered here as it was the day of their annual congregation. This was also one of the reasons why Khan and the group had chosen this particular day to make their first public appearance after fueling the nationwide protests. Swoosh! Flutter! The 2 7th-stage saints appeared in the sky and hovered over the grand, pristine white palace-like headquarters building that was filled with terrifying pressure. Almost every person in the nearby 10-kilometer radius was almost kissing the ground, and even beings of might such as 5th and 6th stage saints were no exceptions. At most, those supposed godly beings were able to look up and speak a few words. Other than them, everyone else was basically turned akin to a stone, unable to move and barely breathing under the insurmountable pressure. Nice. I knew the master would handle it thoroughly without causing even the slightest destruction, said Khan with a smirk. Master? You have a master? Asked Jeremiah, who was quietly following Khan like a loyal servant, because he had no other choice but to follow Khan's smallest command. I have for so far. Who knows if there will be another one in the future? Said Khan as his gaze fixated on a particular building. Let's go. A dreary scenario was taking place in a grand hall filled with thousands of members from various reputable noble clans, merchant guild leaders, business owners, and powerful people with grandmaster to saint rank classes. The 1-kilometer-long hallway had massive pavilions with luxurious seats on both sides. Despite its enormous size, high-ranking artifacts and magic formations made every word spoken and images of all the faction's key figures visible. Even some of the most prominent clans that had existed since the founding of the Rakos Empire, who later chose to join the neutral faction, were lying like helpless flies caught in the spider's web. Although all these people commanded respect and fear in the outside world, here, they were lying on the ground, unable to utter a single word. Swoosh! Khan suddenly appeared in the middle of the hallway and looked around, his eyes casting a shadow on these rich and influential people, who commanded millions of people across the empire. So this is the famous House of Exalted, huh? Said Khan as he mused while looking at the architecture and regal designs of the paintings on the ceiling and the walls. It was then, "You're late," spoke a tall mage with horns and a golden blue scepter. Beside him was a young woman in black raven battlemage attire. Khan was now in the presence of Vildred Mortalix, his magic mentor, and Cassandra Michelson, the raven sorceress. Blame this old bastard. His domain was infused with a unique law. It took me some time to reverse his powers and defeat him, said Khan as he pointed his left thumb at Jeremiah, who was walking behind him. So, did you succeed in doing it? Asked Cassandra. Yes, I had to put the fear of death in him first instead of just plummeting him until he gave up. But now, we have him and the entire demi-human faction under our feet, said Khan with a playful smirk. Good. We took care of this cat here, said Vildred as he turned around, looking at a 3-meter-tall dark red tigerkin. The tall peak 7th stage saint was none other than Stalin Joseph, the leader of the neutral faction. At this moment, his entire body was riddled with wounds, with chains stabbing into his body in various places. Each chain had archaic runes on it, while the tigerkin was caged in an ancient rank restriction magic formation cast by Vildred. The burn marks on his fur indicated that he must have been zapped by Vildred's lightning quite a lot during their face-off. He wasn't even that strong, now that I'm close to my original strength. Even fighting a peak 7th stage saint feels like having a random duel in a training facility. I was not amused by his domain or his skills as a brawler class saint. Even you, my disciple, have better skills and fighting techniques than him," iterated Vildred with a disappointed look. The discontent on his face was visible even to Stalin, who was looking at them with bated breath. His eyes were filled with rage, but his body was barely holding on. He barely lifted his head and finally saw Khan. How the hell are you still alive, Salvatore? And why? Why do you have a freaking dragon with you?" asked the faction leader as blood dripped from his body. "Oh, you remember me? The last time we met was when I was officially appointed as the Sovereign of Verlassen. I remember you attending the party along with this old dam behind me," said Khan, signaling Jeremiah to come forth. "You! Don't tell me it was you, Jeremiah. Did you join hands with this bastard who ruined our reputation and cost all of us dearly 5 years ago? Didn't he hurt your faction the most?" questioned Stalin with fury. "Oh, don't misunderstand. He's not my ally or anything. He found out about me being alive around the same time as you. If it pleases you, know that he and his entire faction, clan, and bloodline are now my slaves," said Khan nonchalantly. Gasp! Despite his grave injuries, Stalin Joseph couldn't help but gasp. The old elf, who was at least 350 years older than him, couldn't help but lower his head in disgrace. "Oh, come on. Don't feel left out. I'm gonna do the same to all of you unless everyone here wants to die," declared Khan with a devious countenance. It was right then, his eyesight focused on one of the powerful clan leaders who was part of the faction. "Hello. How are you? It's been a while," said Khan as he greeted a particular someone while waving his hand. Khan's smile widened as he continued and revealed the identity of this clan leader, father-in-law, Damon Michelson, the 13th successor to the clan leader position of the Michelson clan, founded by Lesrin Michelson, who was hailed as the first sage of the Rakos Empire when it was founded by Rathnar Whitlock over 1,000 years ago, now looked in disbelief as he saw the man waving at him. Today was supposed to be their annual congregation of the neutral faction, where more than 300,000 members of the faction, each holding a significant value and position in the outside world, had come as part of the tradition ever since the new empire's regime started over a century ago. Just like all of the previous events, all these leaders had united to talk about the most important issues regarding the faction's future. In particular, this year's meeting held significant value due to recent uprisings and protests that took place over 10 days ago, and the one that was taking place this morning. Given what happened 5 years ago, none of the powerful clan leaders and corporation heads who were part of the faction took these protests lightly. The social reformation caused by the death of the former sovereign of Verlassen had cost all three noble factions across the empire tremendously in all aspects. Because people had rejected everything their name was attached to back then, after hearing out how these people, hailing from the elite class of the society, who had governed them while calling it democracy, killed the man who actually rose from a similar background as them. Whether it was businesses, services, resources sold in the market, or even amenities provided through resorts, restaurants, or even banks, people had turned their backs on all of these factions. In the last 5 years, the government was changed, and the majority of them had lost their positions while those who rose in the position of authority had opposed them on all fronts. But through their usual means of corruption, coercion, blackmail, and systematic segregation against those from the commoner class, all of the factions managed to regain their positions while preaching the name of safety and security of the empire, since the majority of the saints belonged to these factions. And since the law and order were also just one of their playthings, they didn't have much resistance to regain control over the masses. Meanwhile, the history repeated itself and the people of the empire forgot what happened 5 years ago as they kept on adjusting to their lives. The common working class cared more about putting food on the table today than worrying about the future yields a year later. And that has always allowed the oppressors and the elites to snuff out the resistance and maintain their control. Yet just a couple of weeks ago, the artifact called Whisper reignited those flames of uprising against the re-established government that had been controlling the empire, and just now, the man who caused their downfall many years ago stood tall and smiling in front of them. This gave Damon Michelson even a bigger surprise than watching his own daughter, Cassandra, following behind the dragon mage who suddenly broke past all of their countermeasures and formations. Before they could do anything, All of them were affected by an ancient rank spell, and Vildred fought Stalin in a separate realm of his own. It had been barely half an hour before their battle ended, while Damon Michelson could only keep his head up while glaring at his daughter, who revealed herself as a fifth-stage saint. Khan and Cassandra looked at Damon Michelson as if they were having a heartfelt family gathering. Cassandra slowly walked towards Khan and locked her left hand with Khan's right arm while leaning her head on his shoulder. "What do you think, father? Is my future husband good enough?" she asked mockingly. Then her gaze landed on her mother, Rainina Michelson. "What do you think, mother? Isn't he handsome?" she asked in a curt and sarcastic tone. "I would like to thank you and all the elders of our clan who sold me out to him that day after I lost my powers. Who knew your biggest act of betrayal would lead me to meet the love of my life," said Cassandra while shamelessly gloating. "In case you're wondering, I became a saint 5 years ago before he faked his death. And thanks to his act of self-sacrifice, I'm now a fifth-stage saint. It truly helped," declared Cassandra, and the very next moment, her eyes turned full of contempt. "In killing all those disgusting bastards of the clan who traded me like an object for their own benefit. But no worries, I made sure their deaths were painful and horrifying," she declared with a deathly glare at her parents. It was right then. Damon Michelson used his aura to its full extent and broke past the restrictions, finally mustering enough strength to speak. "You? So it was you who killed 4 of the elders of the clan and not some enemy faction?" asked the clean-shaven and frail-looking clan leader, who himself was a peak 6th-stage saint. "Yes, but not only that," responded Cassandra as her gaze then landed on the area behind their chairs, her sight focusing on a young blonde woman with dark blue eyes similar to hers. "I also killed Uncle Stranoff," revealed Cassandra. "What?" asked Damon, shocked to his core. "Yes, he didn't enter secluded training because he was about to break through to the 5th-stage saint rank, as per the letter he left behind. I killed him more than 15 days ago," she revealed. As for the woman who heard those words while Cassandra mockingly looked at her, her body turned ashen as if it were made of stone. "Step." Cassandra casually walked towards the woman and leaned downwards with a bright smile. "I hope you're not angry at me, cousin. We're family after all," spoke Cassandra while nonchalantly making a cute Egeo face. The woman who just heard about her father's death was someone Cassandra treated as her own sister while growing up, and would not mind dying to protect her not long ago. The woman with a mortified countenance, lying on the ground, was none other than Veronica Michelson. Veronica Michelson, who not only had the moniker of the Flash Goddess but was also the only daughter of Stranoff Michelson, who was hailed as the #1 swordsman of the Rocco's Empire, now looked at Cassandra with petrified eyes. Her entire body was frozen from the unexpected shock and bewilderment as if she had become a statue. The fact that Cassandra revealed how she killed her father out of nowhere shook her to the core. But under Vildred's ancient rank formation, she could lift her head at most, even though she was now a 2nd-stage saint. At this moment, she wanted to scream and even attack Cassandra with all her might, but all she could do was lie on the floor, helplessly. "It is hilarious that not a single one of you ever expected me to be the culprit just because I could hide my saint rank perfectly. You all prepared to face an enemy from the outside, but not one from within. It truly made my revenge fun," said Cassandra with an arrogant smile as if she didn't care what others thought of her. "All I had to do was bide my time until I was ready to kill the next target. Took me 5 years to quell my thirst for vengeance, but it was worth the wait. Watching you all, groveling at my feet, brings me immense joy," she said with a quaint smile. You abhorrent and despicable child," shouted Damon, his body shaking from intense rage. "You killed the pillars of our clan and even my brother, for that petty reason. What reason does one's life have if not for living for the sake of their clan and heritage? What wrong was committed when you turned useless and had only one way to serve the clan? It's not like we sold you in some brothel or a slave market," said Damon, his face disgruntled and eyes turning red with fury. But instead of losing her calm, Cassandra walked close to her father and looked him dead in the eye. You speak about family, blood, clan, and heritage all the time, but have you ever acted on those words, father? That day, instead of fighting for your daughter who worked so hard to make you proud and worthy of your name, you chose not to even oppose the idea of trading me to someone just because I had lost my powers. Even a prostitute gets treated better than that, spoke Cassandra while clenching her fists in anger. She had been waiting for this day to confront her father and ask him why he did not fight for her. But in the past 5 years, after the day of betrayal, she saw her parents for the kind of people they were. For both Damon and Rainina, their pride as members of the noble class, their reputation, influence in the clan, and false sense of prestige in society mattered far more than the happiness of their own child. They were similar to those parents who treated their blood and flesh only as means to advance their own name and legacy rather than worrying about their happiness. Khan on Earth had a similar experience with his own family. Not everyone was lucky enough to have kind and caring parents in life. Hell, even in the same house, some parents treated their children differently. One was loved and cared for, while the other was just a burden for reasons unknown to those children. There were plenty of families where parents would threaten their sons or daughters not to get a divorce, even if the person in question was being abused mentally or physically, having their mind and self-respect trashed by their partner. Why? Because those parents cared more about their image in front of their relatives, neighbors, and the society they lived in, as it would tarnish their name and pride. In many cultures, the dreams and passion didn't even matter, as whether the child would become a doctor, engineer, or a lawyer was already decided the moment the child was born. Cassandra and Khan's parents weren't the first, and they wouldn't be the last. The atmosphere in the hallway turned heated as Cassandra confronted all the key figures of her clan, finally spilling out all the hatred she had gathered in her heart. There was no sense of regret left, and neither did she feel any kind of remorse. It was right then Khan spoke. Instead of me doing it, it should be you. Cassandra's head turned, and even Vildred looked at Khan with a jolted expression. Yes, instead of me, it should be you who takes control of the entire neutral faction. You know far more about their clans, their hierarchy, their history, and their weaknesses. Besides, I can't actually force your clan to make the contract since our children would have the same bloodline as you. We can use the blood oath token for them, and you might as well become their matriarch, said Khan, revealing his proposition. Because in the end, the stigmata of bloodlines had a rare but major flaw. If you force a bloodline to become your slaves using this ancient rank artifact and then have a member of the same bloodline as your partner, who would bring back your offspring in the future, your next generation would also be affected by the curse. In other words, Khan and Cassandra's children would be bound by the restriction of the contract the moment they were born. So they would need a different medium to enforce their contract. Fortunately, there were already a few alternatives available. But as for others, like his pussycat and those who hold a similar standing in this faction, they all will have no choice but to do it unless they want to die, declared Khan and summoned the stigmata of bloodlines. 1 hour later, a terrifying scenario took place as blood spilled like water in the renowned Hall of Exalted, a famous headquarters of the neutral faction, as Cassandra used the artifact to force the contract on all of the elite members and their clans to become her slaves. Even the reputed clans and business tycoons who had a history of centuries were now turned into her pawns. As for those who opposed and refused to bow their heads down, Cassandra killed them all mercilessly, without a second of hesitation, because she knew that such an opportunity would not come again in her lifetime. So she killed one chicken to scare the other 100, showing them how fierce the sharpness of the butcher's knife was. Originally, it was Khan who aimed to take over this faction just like he did with the demi-human faction. But knowing how Cassandra had lived and fought for her vengeance while he was away, it just felt like the right thing to do. His beloved needed her own dominion to rule. And given the opportunity, it worked in their favor as Khan's future children would also be able to control this faction. Just like that, a new history page was written for the Rocco's Empire, leading to a new future in the new timeline, the birth of the Queen of Sorceresses. After handling and subjugating the neutral faction, Khan, Cassandra, and Vildred left for their next target. By this time, the whole Rocco's empire had been turned upside down as Khan's subordinates defeated all the opposing saints across the empire. Each of their spectacular battles, in which they defeated multiple saints individually, was periodically broadcast on the same projection artifacts. If netizens of a big city saw Omega absolutely decimating his opponents with his gravity domain, soon, they would see the next battle between Oliver and members of a government institution being shamefully beaten and shocked by the latter's newly achieved domain after he became a 5th-stage saint. Then after that, the next footage would be selected randomly, where other members like Armin, Blackwell, or someone like Jugram straight up dominate their battle against enemies with an overwhelming display of force and skills. The main reason this pattern was executed by the members of the 7 deadly sins across the empire being, Khan planned all of this, because no matter how strong a single person is, a newly established rule or a government would not earn the common population's unquestionable faith and support if the others who follow Khan aren't known to the public as absolutely unfathomable and strong people themselves. Khan now had enough footage to circle around the whole empire till the very evening. All the citizens who had taken arms against the current government would feel an overwhelming surge of joy and elation while watching these people, who showed up in their most perilous times, destroy their oppressors right in front of their eyes. It was more than enough to gain everyone's acknowledgement, their faith, and most importantly, a harmonious support to Khan's upcoming establishment of the new imperial rule. And this display of their heroes defeating the villains would be the most historic beginning of the empire's new era of prosperity. In the western end of the capital Rathna was the main headquarters of the Pureblood faction, where Khan had come to meet their faction leader almost 5 years ago. Swoosh! The trio approached the headquarters from the sky, with no magic formation or a warship barring their arrival at the current most powerful faction in the empire. "Ah, brings back memories," said Khan with a quaint smile. "You've been here before?" asked Cassandra with a puzzled expression. As per her knowledge, Khan was on odd terms with all the factions ever since he became the sovereign of the Verlassen fiefdom. "Yes, I once came here to make a deal with their faction leader. It was the same objective that led me to find and make a soul oath with Rathnar," revealed Khan. He soon recounted how the Emperor's chosen tournament was just a means to send the best talents in the Forbidden Zone and find the Tablet of Arcana, and how if Cassandra hadn't lost her powers, she too would have been sent there to die just like Khan and others back then. "So your greed led you to find me, the greatest treasure of this empire and probably the world. You shouldn't be ashamed of it," spoke the former peak saint through Khan, his voice openly echoing in the surrounding. Now that Khan had told Cassandra everything regarding his identity and what happened in the last 5 years, Rathnar no longer found the need to hide his existence. "Just shut up, old man. I had to fake my death and leave this empire because I found your wretched ass," replied Khan as he rolled his eyes. He. I guess I should thank this faction leader fella. His evil intentions did lead to my freedom," said Rathnar coquettishly. "Well, this faction leader killed the previous emperor with the help of Jeremiah and Stalin. You sure want to greet him with a smile?" asked Khan mockingly. "So what? They did because they were weak. Besides, not a single one of them was worthy to become my vessel ever since my death. Not a single one of them ever became a 9th-stage saint in the past 1,000 years, despite my teachings and even granting them access to the Tablet of Arcana. It was one failure after another. Things became interesting only after you came along," responded Rathnar without any hint of anger. "To dismiss the fall of your own descendants so nonchalantly, you aren't a trustworthy man, First Emperor," spoke Vildred with clear disdain in his tone. "Ha! Says the dragon who was backstabbed by his own blood and brethren," rebuked the peak saint. "I'm with Lord Vildred in this one. Your dismissal of their deaths doesn't really give a good impression," said Cassandra. "Quiet girl. I knew your ancestor, Lesrin Michelson. The fact that your clan defected during the coup still boils my blood. Even Lesrin would be rolling in his grave if he learned of their betrayal. Had you not been the beloved of this brat, our interaction would be so different. Lesrin was my only friend. Though you have the talent and potential to surpass him, you're still nowhere close." iterated Rathnar sternly. "And who the hell wants your approval, you damn ghost? You're free because of him. You should side with his interests first before joking around. Besides, I have no intention to compete with the first sage of the Empire. I no longer live to meet someone else's expectations, rather live the life on my own terms. And I have decided to follow my beloved, not you," spoke Cassandra in a queenly and disregarding tone. Her expression indicated that she had been liberated from her haunting past, where everyone compared her to the first sage ever since childhood, because she possessed a similar talent for magic. "The dead should remain under the ground. Glory of the past shouldn't affect the present," declared Cassandra firmly. "This girl," said Vildred with a pleased tone. "I like her." The former Lightning Dragon Emperor could only revel in joy as he saw Cassandra berate Rathnar, his former rival. It was right then, a telepathic message reached all their ears. "I'm done. You should come in." This message came from none other than Argos Belmont, the Revenant Sovereign. Blip! All three of them quickly teleported and appeared in the main council hall of the Pureblood faction's headquarters. Khan saw a few familiar faces, and his gaze landed on the leader of the Pureblood faction, who had a terrified and discombobulated expression on his face. The 400-year-old vampire faction leader, looking at Khan with a stupefied face, was the very person who caused Khan's departure from the Rakos Empire, also known to the citizens as Alistair Moore Vanderij. Khan looked at Alistair Moore Vanderijk, the person who, in a way, forced him to fake his death and abscond to the Vulcan Empire right after Khan had solidified himself as the sovereign of Verlassen fiefdom. Back then, Khan was in dire need of St. Cors to become a saint and keep on ascending to become stronger over the years. Because sooner or later, the group called the Inquisitors would find his whereabouts and come to hunt him. Even in the original timeline, First Khan, aka the Martial Emperor, was found by them as soon as he became a saint and had to run away, leaving behind everything he achieved, and could only return after he became an 8th stage saint. In this timeline, Khan's altered fate allowed him to form friendly terms with the Vanderijk clan out of pure luck, and after he won the Emperor's Chosen tournament and became the sovereign of Verlassen fiefdom, he made a deal with the faction leader, Alistair Moore Vanderijk. In the Rakos Empire, as one of the only 3 peak 7th stage saints, Alistair Moore Vanderijk held the position of Chief General of Military. Thus, he had a lot of influence as both the leader of the Pureblood faction and as the one who held the highest position in the Empire's biggest line of defense. So after the faction leader made a deal with Khan to have him retrieve the Tablet of Arcana, in return, Khan asked for St. Cors till he became at least a 6th stage saint. 5 years ago, the terms of the deal were very beneficial to Khan, who had set his roots in the Empire and would eventually help him become strong without having to do his usual hunting, training relentlessly, and fighting strong opponents. However, the hope of an easy life was shattered after he learned that whoever retrieves the Tablet of Arcana, which would evidently bind their soul with Rathnar Whitlock's half-soul, would eventually be killed to gain the ownership of one of the 6 ancient relics left by demigods of bygone eras. Thus, Khan had no choice but to run. Although his encounters in the Vulcan, Zivit, and Nader empires had turned fruitful and made him many times stronger than he possibly could have if he stayed in the Rakos Empire, Khan held a grudge because it was the one event where he was fooled, used, and blindsided by someone. First on Earth and now on Vantria, this experience was something he still hadn't forgotten and felt as if it was a fresh memory. The one thing Khan never forgot or forgave was betrayal. Back to the present, Khan looked around the grand hall where thousands of powerful and influential people across the empire had come to attend this meeting. Although it wasn't their annual congregation like the neutral faction, for some reason all the important figures of the Pureblood faction were here. "Oh, are you surprised to see me, you old bloodsucker?" asked Khan with a contemptuous expression. Because no one inside this headquarters knew what was happening in the outside world, thanks to Argos completely sealing off the premises of their headquarters. "Thanks to you, I had to run and hide for quite some time. I do have to give credit where it's due though. No one has misdirected and used me this well for their own gain other than you in this life so far. So I had to come here to settle down the score," spoke Khan in a grim and vengeful tone. Soon, His eyes settled on the other familiar figures that attended this meeting. "Hello there, Lord Ismatrazel," said Khan as he greeted the leader of the Vandereyck clan, who was also the son of Alistair Moore Vandereyck. Back then, when Khan formed the Bloodborne Blacksmithing Company, Ismatrazel, the fourth stage saint, also considered as the second-best swordsman of the Rocco's Empire, was their main patron who helped settle their business and brought in a wide and extremely rich clientele. At one point, this 180-year-old vampire lord, who looked like a man in his mid-30s because of their race, even offered to make Khan his disciple. But due to having his identity as Hero of Darkness, Khan used the excuse of him being a human as a gateway to decline that offer. So their relationship had stayed as mere business partners before Khan became the sovereign of Verlassen. And finally, his gaze rested on a young vampire with long, shoulder-length silver hair. It was the very person who led Khan to meet these powerful figures of the Empire. Sale Moore Vandereyck, the 61-year-old vampire who looked like a teenager and had now become a semi-saint magician after 5 years since Khan had seen him last. Khan and Sale met right after the former left the Flavit city and were heading to the capital Rathna. And Khan ended up saving the latter's life, leading to his introduction to Ismatrazel and evidently, Alistair. Behind Sale was a young vampire woman who looked slightly older than him, but her eyes were almost lifeless, as if she had turned into a mere puppet. Vivian Moore Vandereyck, the half-sister of Sale, who was the one behind the attack that Khan saved Sale from. As for her punishment, she had been turned into Sale's slave, with her soul bound to the young vampire after her clan discovered her betrayal for joining hands with the traitors within the clan, who also struck alliances with enemies, namely the demi-human faction, for their personal vendettas. All in all, Khan was meeting all these familiar figures from his past as if he were having a family reunion on Christmas Eve or a Thanksgiving dinner. After he was done looking around, Khan brought out the stigmata of bloodlines. He was going to have his revenge on the entire clan and make the guilty ones pay 100-fold. It didn't matter to him if an irrelevant party got entangled and suffered, like Sale, for example, in the wake of his vengeance. We can't use it here. Suddenly, it was Argos who spoke up with a hesitant tone. Wait a minute. Why isn't he tied down by your powers, and why does everyone here seem untouched? Asked Vildred to the Revenant Sovereign. Ah, well, it is complicated. This Alistair Moore Vandereyck, you see, spoke Argos while averting his gaze, scratching his chin with a guilty expression, is my disciple. The reason is that out of nowhere, Argos suddenly hits Khan's face with a metaphorical hammer, revealing that Alistair Moore Vandereyck is actually his disciple. What nonsense is that? Lord Argos, someone of your stature shouldn't be making jokes like this, said Khan, brushing this revelation as a mere jest by the Revenant Sovereign. Ha ha ha, that is indeed surprising to hear. One would easily fall for such a lie if they didn't know you, said Rathnar openly. His voice now clearly rang in everyone's ears, puzzling the most about the origin. Wait, is that who I think it is? Asked Alistair, the 400-year-old vampire. Yes, it is I, Rathnar Whitlock, the first emperor, declared the Peak Saint grandly, his voice echoing in the entire massive hallway that was as big as a coliseum. Stunned, the sudden appearance of the first emperor shocked everyone attending the assembly to their core. I wondered who the ingrats were that killed my descendants. Now I've seen all 3 of them. And yet, I feel disappointed. Not in you but my lineage that died to weaklings like you, said Rathnar firmly. Just the voice alone sent shivers in everyone's spines and gave them goosebumps even though none could see Rathnar. And his tone dictated that even the 3 peak 7th stage saints of the Rocco's empires were nothing but mere ants in his opinion. Wait, we can discuss that later. Let me ask this first, spoke Khan as he interjected midway. You're not joking, right? He questioned as he looked at Argos intently. In response, the vampire lord spoke with a calm but hesitant voice. Do you think I would make such a useless joke after coming so far just to aid you take over this empire? Even I just found out that one of my disciples, whom I assumed dead centuries ago, was actually the very person you assigned me to subdue. Argos maintained his regal tone, but by his expression, Everyone could tell that he was just as surprised as them to see Alistair here. How? How does it make any sense? He's known to be more than 400 years old, and you, Lord Argos, are close to 250 years old at most, said Khan, visibly curious after subsiding his confusion. Yes, yes. The faction leader of the Purebloods is a very renowned figure of the Empire whose existence has been influential for the past 3 centuries. How could you be the master of someone so elderly like him? Questioned Cassandra, as she was the most knowledgeable about the history of factions in the Rocco's Empire among their entourage. After the incessant barrage of questions, the Vampire King decided to divulge the truth in its entirety. I became his master when I was only 100 years old. But we didn't meet here or in the Belmont Kingdom. Our fates crossed paths when he was already a 4th stage saint and I had just ascended to 1st stage saint rank. Cited Argos. That would be 150 years ago when I met the master. This time it was Alistair who revealed the information. His gaze was filled with respect and vehemence for the vampire standing by his side. You youngins might not know this, but 400 years ago, vampires were being hunted in the Rocco's Empire. It was due to a failed resurgence attempt and because my ancestors had caused a massive genocide in the name of declaring vampires as the most supreme race of the Empire. But after the attempt was thwarted by the imperial family, most of the vampire clans were subjugated and put to death via public executions. That was the era I was born into, explained Alistair as he recounted a dark chapter in the history of the Rocco's Empire. Oh, no wonder I felt like I heard the name Vandereyck. Suddenly, Rathnar spoke again as if a distant memory was awakened from its slumber. It was during the 6th Emperor's reign. I remember him complaining about you leeches for weeks in the Chamber of Exaltation. As a matter of fact, it was I who suggested purging all of you vampires from the Empire. Him admitting thing unknown truth behind the events of the past added even more fear in the minds of those who were present in this ginormous hallway. Yes, our Vandereyck clan is one of the only 2 clans that survived those times. I myself trained to become a saint in seclusion until I was 250 years old. However, I had hit my limit back then as a saint and decided to go on a pilgrimage to broaden my horizons while hiding my true identity. It was during my journey that I came across Master, revealed the 7th stage saint. Everyone then looked at Argos, their expectant gazes looking into his entire existence. Then, asked Khan, well, given the once-in-a-millennium genius I am, spoke the sovereign. Soon, Argos told everyone a tale of honor, friendship, glory, and defying fate, which was irrelevant to the ongoing plot. And in the end, despite him being 3 ranks below and 150 years younger compared to Alistair, the latter let go of his pride and officially became Argos' disciple. Thanks to Master and his teachings about bloodlines, I broke past my bloodline's limit after returning to the Rocco's Empire and even became a 7th stage saint. But unfortunately, I could never leave the Rocco's Empire to find my master again, said the old vampire with a yearning countenance. It wouldn't have helped. I traveled across many empires throughout my life, until I established the Belmont Kingdom close to 50 years ago after becoming a 9th stage saint. I never expected to see my disciple becoming one of the 3 strongest saints of this empire, said Argos with a nostalgic expression. Khan, Vildred, and Cassandra heard the whole story with poker faces. What the hell is this? How does this storyline even fit in the current arc? Is the author out of all the ideas because he didn't write a storyboard this time? Wondered Khan with an exasperated countenance. It doesn't matter, he spoke in a grim tone. I apologize in advance, Lord Argos. He may have ties with you in the past, but he did screw up my life and I still hold a grudge. Out of my respect for your help so far, I won't force him like the rest, he declared in a collected by vengeful voice. But it doesn't change the fact that he did try to kill me, said Khan while glaring at the vampire faction leader. No, we never planned to kill you. We were just planning to take out the 1st Emperor's soul from your body. And during that process, we were going to use a secret art to turn you into a vampire of our clan, revealed Alistair. What? Shouted Khan in disbelief. Only those who had a good memory would remember Alistair and Ismatrazel having this conversation about turning Khan into a vampire after he was done delivering the Tablet of Arcana way long ago in the third arc. There exists a way that could turn a human into a pureblood vampire? Asked Khan with a stunned expression. Of course there is. The one who created that secret art. Spoke Alistair and looked at a certain someone. Averting Khan's eyes was a tall vampire in black and emerald armor, who apologetically spoke. Yes, it was me. Khan, Cassandra, Vildred, and even all the members of the Pureblood faction locked their eyes on Argos Belmont, the Revenant Sovereign. Most of their expressions were filled with disbelief, because there was a secret art that could turn humans into pureblood vampires. And why was this news so shocking to everyone? Because if this method were known, then it would have broken all the power balance in the Empire, and had Alistair and the Vanderite clan decided to use it in the past couple of centuries, they would have been the rulers of the nation. Although humans had many disadvantages compared to other native species and races, their significant numbers in the overall population were higher than all the other species individually. Vampires themselves were hardly 5% of the entire Empire's census, and if they had chosen to turn the humans as their kin, the paradigm in strength, capable fighters, and people who could use magic and invoke a fighting class would throw the entire Rocco's empire into chaos. It was no different than having a nuke in your arsenal while all the enemies and rivals were ignorant about your hidden weapon of mass destruction. Looking at everyone's expressions, you did right by not using it. Spoke Argos as he glanced at Alistair. It was as per your directives, Master. It was too great a weapon to ever use it. I would have too much blood on my hands if others of my kin tried to use it en masse. Responded the faction leader. Why is this lore deepening right when I was about to get my revenge? Thought Khan. Pardon my indifference to your past with him, Lord Argos, but I previously made a promise to myself that there won't be any exceptions. I can let go of the notion of enslaving his entire bloodline. But some debts must be paid off regardless of what unexpected developments might come our way. He stated with a firm tone. So you are unable to let go of your grudge even after my request? Asked Argos coldly. Khan's role as the hero of darkness and Argos pledge was a different matter compared to the business related to his disciple, Alistair. I mean no disrespect. So how about we make a bet? Proposed Khan. What kind of bet are we talking about? Asked Argos as he folded his arms. Since it's related to my future rule as the Emperor of the Rocco's Empire, how about me and him fighting until one side is completely subjugated? He revealed. If I win, I get to decide whether I can use the stigmata of bloodlines on the Pureblood faction and the Vanderite clan. But if he wins, their clan in particular, not the faction, will be exempted from the ritual. This is far more of a mercy I'm willing to show compared to what we did with the neutral and demi-human faction. Declared Khan with a firm and stoic voice. His expression was resolute, and his stance was uncompromising. Even Argos could feel the sincerity as well as consideration in his proposal. This way, Khan was not outright being disrespectful or dismissive of Argos' authority as his benefactor. But he was also not backing down and fairly settling the score. After some thought, Argos spoke to Alistair. This is between you two. I can't intervene more than this. The future of your clan and your bloodline is entirely in your hands. He declared. What are they even talking about? What about us? Asked one of the clan leaders. You lot have only yourself to blame. To not be strong enough to resist or have ties with Lord Argos here, said Khan in a grim tone. One after another, Khan used the stigmata of bloodlines and turned all the attendees into his slaves, just like he did with others. Those who resisted were killed directly under his saint pressure, plastered on the floor like flattened bread. After seeing that Khan was a seventh stage saint himself, many gave up hope and accepted their fates, because in the end, no one wanted to die for a useless pride or prestige. 1 hour later, Alistair Moore Vanderijk, one of the peak 7th stage saints of the Rocco's Empire, now floated in the skies of a different world. This was a new realm created by an artifact they brought from the Nader Empire. This artifact created pocket dimensions. the same type of artifacts that Romulus used to train Khan during his stay in the Beast Empire. For this particular face-off, it was a 300-kilometer-wide battlefield of barren mountains and raging skies filled with lightning bolts falling incessantly. There were no forests or any other living creatures while the rest of the people watched in the hallway through screens, just like how they watched the Emperor's chosen tournament. In the Rocco's Empire, this was a foreign technology and was never used because they simply lacked the knowledge and resources. As per their preconceived notions, it should be possible only in the Empire of Space. But now, here it was. Their almighty faction leader was now forced to face a boy not even 1/10 of his age. And miraculously, this young man was also a 7th-stage saint just like him, even though he was merely a semi-saint just 5 years ago. You? What kind of anomaly are you? Why do you have my master helping you in this conquest of uniting the Empire? Asked Alistair as the thunderous skies shook the realm they were flying in. Argos had already told him about how the former was acting as Khan's guardian and helping him in uniting the Empire because of his personal reasons. But he told him nothing about Khan's true identity. Because even if somehow Khan managed to become strong with Rathnar and Tablet of Arcana's help, it didn't explain his ties with Argos, whom even Alistair could not track from all these years after returning to the Rocco's Empire. Shing! Alistair summoned his weapon, a vermilion spear with the aura of blood and killing intent leaking out like a raging beast. This was a legendary rank weapon, which made him a nightmare on the battlefield as it enhanced his skills and abilities as a pureblood vampire. Since I promised to have a fair fight with you, I shall use a weapon of the same type and rank as you. I will also not use any laws of reality or nature to defeat you. Know that I'm doing it purely out of respect for Lord Argos, who has been helping me so far for reasons only he knows. So show me your best. Declared Khan. Boom! A malevolent and sinister aura of pitch-black darkness arose as Khan also summoned his own weapon. Although it was also a legendary rank weapon, the pressure it gave out was far superior compared to Alistair's weapon. To settle his old grudge with the vampire faction leader, Khan had chosen to take out his weapon, the spear called Gungnir. Khan and Alistair now faced each other in the realm to settle their old grudges. In a way, it was just one-sided grudge in the beginning because Khan was forced to abdicate his position as sovereign of Verlassen fiefdom while needing to fake his death. But after his supposed death, all 3 factions of the Empire took a major hit, had to leave their governmental positions, and even many of their businesses and any industry they had fingers in suffered monumental losses in trillions of gold dramas. It took them 5 years just to recover their losses, pay off any lingering debts while managing to calm the people of the Empire, just so they could get elected again, even via backhanded means such as corruption and rigging the elections. And just when the fire had been barely put out, the root cause of it all turned out to be alive. But not only did he just return with no fear in his eyes, he outright displayed the audacity to challenge their authority. In front of his very eyes, Alistair saw Khan bind his entire faction, their members, and the whole bloodlines to become his lifelong slaves. Not only was he unable to fight his way through this predicament, the one who aided Khan was none other than his own master. And now, if Alistair lost to Khan in this battle, the fate of his clan and bloodline itself wouldn't be any different. This brat not only became a 7th-stage saint in just 5 years after finding the Tablet of Arcana, he even made allies with unfathomable strength that surpass even mine. That shouldn't be possible even if he had a relic left by demigods. He is, after all, just a human. Alas, I shan't lose here. If I do, I will ruin my entire life's hard work as well as responsibilities as the leader of the Vanderite clan with my own hands. Thought the old vampire leader himself. Boom! Alistair's vermilion aura spread on the battlefield, turning many times heavier than before, while dozens of pillars made of gushing blood arose. Vampires had great control over blood, second only to demons who specialized in using it as part of their powers, skills, and innate abilities. Soon, the blood itself started boiling, and a vast expanse was covered in this red bloody fog. On the other side, Khan's expression hadn't changed a bit. What should I do? If I use the true demon bloodline abilities, I can instantly take away his advantage of using blood. There is also the chaos element that thrives on blood as a medium, so if I use either of them, my victory will be overwhelming. But that's the main problem. I'm too strong even among the veterans of the same rank. I will win simply way too quickly to the point his mind will never be able to accept such instant defeat. I want to take my time and enjoy beating him as I vent out all the frustration I've had piled up over the years. And because of his species as a vampire, he makes the best punching bag among 7th-stage saints. He thought while weighing his options. Khan didn't just want to win. He wanted to break Alistair and also set an example in front of those who were watching in the real world. He wanted everyone to fear him to the point that they wouldn't even think about going against his commands in the future. I'm already giving myself a big handicap by not using Space Law or Muramesa. I also won't be using any other element either. So the best way to achieve what I want will be, wondered Khan, and suddenly, a light bulb showed up on his head. Yes, that is the best way, thought Khan as he snickered. His smug grin wasn't missed by Alistair on the other side. This bastard. Is he looking down on me just because he has Master as his backer? Does he really think I won't kill him out of my respect for Master? Asked Alistair to himself as his brows furrowed. And it was right then. Khan simply grabbed Gungnir as if he were grabbing a javelin. Shoot! Bang! Khan threw the spear at supersonic speed, breaking the sound barrier multiple times. The speed was so instantaneous that despite Alistair floating 3 kilometers away, the spear almost reached him in 2 seconds. Clang! Tremble! Rumble! The sky rumbled again. This time, it wasn't the destructive lightning strikes but Alistair blocking Gungnir that shook the entire 2-kilometer radius. Whoosh! Even the mountains below trembled from the shockwaves left behind as the impact of the clash between 2 spears. Alistair was a spearmaster, the best in the whole Rocco's empire. Tremor. The old vampire's arms quivered as he felt tremors in his whole body. What the hell? Isn't he supposed to be just a beginner 7th-stage saint? Why did the single attack feel like it came from an 8th-stage saint even though it wasn't a powerful skill either? He wondered and then looked at the spear he was defending against. Whoosh! But the next moment, the spear disappeared. Grab! In just another moment, it reappeared in Khan's hands again. This was the skill named Gungnir's Call. It allowed Khan to summon the spear after throwing at a target instantly, as if the weapon was teleporting as long as he threw it within a 15-kilometer radius. Blood-impaling fury! Shouted Alistair and used his own skill. Swoosh! Crackle! The blood from the fog started solidifying in droves, and within a few seconds, over 1,000 crystallized blood-red spears formed, aiming right at Khan. Alistair's eyes were filled with rage, and he pointed his own spear at Khan, commanding his weapons to attack. Whoosh! Clang! Like bolts of lightning, the thousands of spears shot forth at supersonic speed, creating an inescapable net of spears, bound to heavily injure Khan. But instead of defending, Khan used the Gale Force skill. It created a whirlwind of elemental spears. In this battle, all made of the darkness element, and surrounded the enemy's spears from all directions. Since Alistair was planning to blindside Khan with sheer numbers, the latter decided to counterattack with even greater numbers. Shoot! Clang! Boom! The barrage of massive spears made of blood and darkness clashed, shaking the surrounding 3-kilometer radius just from the shockwaves alone. Each of these spears was more than enough to kill over 100 people and destroy a 100-meter radius on its own. And given the sheer numbers of them, the reality itself trembled from the terrifying clash of the weapons. The black and red explosions filled the sky as the shockwaves fluttered their clothes. And finally, the result became visible for everyone watching. Gasp! All the people watching in the Pureblood faction's headquarters gasped collectively. Although neither of the parties suffered any kind of damage, what came into their sight left them asunder. As the fog and smoke became clear, more than half of the spears made from darkness remained while all the blood-red spears were completely destroyed. Impossible! Alistair exclaimed with disbelief in his eyes. Not only did Khan create far more spears than his own skill, but after their clash, more than half of them remained after the clash. Alistair was the best spearman in the whole empire, his skills and strength tested over centuries, adding more to his fame and dignity. But now, one of his signature skills was completely overwhelmed by Khan's own smirk. Khan's victorious smirk appeared on screens, and everyone started getting the faint idea about how this battle would go. It wasn't going to be the battle of strength, but the battle of skills. Khan made it evidently clear that going forward, it would be a battle of skills, nothing else. Although he didn't have too much time perfecting all his techniques taught by Romulus Lycaeus, the Battle King and the Heavenly King of Fire, every single spear weapon skill he had under his belt was at least saint rank after he became a 7th stage saint. Although none of my skills have reached legendary rank since I don't use a spear as my primary weapon, my physical stats and Rathnar's ascension techniques have made me comparable to a beginner 8th stage saint based on my stats alone. And if I use my buffs and bloodline abilities, I would be even stronger. But let's not reveal too much in the very beginning. Spoke Khan to himself and readied his new attack. Soon, he grabbed Gungnir and charged at Alistair at his full speed. Boom! The shockwaves broke the sound barrier again, and just when Khan was about to hit Alistair midair, clang! He intentionally stopped and used the Phalanx Breaker skill. Stab! Stab! Clang! The spears clashed and sparks flew while even the mountains in the surroundings 2 kilometers away vibrated from the impact of both the legendary rank weapons. The Phalanx Breaker skill allowed Khan to break enemy defense through powerful slashing strikes continuously and reduce the enemy defense by 30% for 2 minutes originally. But now, the consecutive hits increased the effectiveness to 65% for 3 minutes. The more hits Khan landed, the weaker Alistair's momentum became, making the latter prone to more critical hits while creating enough openings. However, Alistair was a master of the spear as well. After he figured out how Khan was planning to break his rhythm and stop his momentum, he simply spun his vermilion spear vertically so fast that it appeared like a spinning wheel, one that couldn't be invaded. Ha! This bastard is no joke. If my constant stabs and slashes can't penetrate his defensive skill, then I'll make it up with a single but powerful attack, he said and let go of Gungnir. Soon, the spear floated just a few inches above his palm but started rotating crazily. Spear drill. Bang! The weapon that had turned into a drilling machine for a few seconds quickly shot forward, and not only did it break past Alistair's skill, but it also pushed the vampire saint 3 kilometers away just from the impact. When used in a battle, the spear would rotate at an extremely fast speed to make critical hits and break the enemy's defense. What insane power! It was barely a few meters away, and the skill itself took only 3 seconds to activate. But I've been sent behind this far? Wondered the faction leader. Alistair then looked at both his arms, which absorbed the hit. Tremble. Both of his hands now trembled from the impact. Spear Drill was originally just an SS rank skill that enhanced all of Gungnir's melee attacks by 15%, with significantly increased stun impact for 10 seconds. But now, it stunned the opponent with 45% increased damage and for 30 seconds. Now, Alistair's body was unable to move for half a minute. Not good. That kid will make use of this opportunity since I'm immobilized. To protect himself from getting hit with a lethal strike, Alistair used one of his signature skills. Blood Palace of Spear, he shouted and released his intense saint pressure. Rumble. Soon, the nearby 10-kilometer radius was turned into a vast net covered by blood and dark red skies. Crackle. The clouds in the sky went haywire, and this time, instead of the violent lightning bolts, thousands of massive 100-meter-long vermilion spears descended from above. Whoa! What an outrageously powerful and over-the-top flashy entrance. It makes me want to kill him right away and absorb that powerful skill of his. Thought Khan to himself. Shoot! The massive spears then shot themselves at Khan. Damn! These are so fast. Whoosh! As if they weren't spears but bullets shot from a turret. The spears attacked Khan while the latter had no choice but to use Quicksilver's skill to keep evading these weapons aimed at him. Spear Maelstrom! Shouted Khan and activated his counterattack. This skill allowed Khan to summon a 200-meter radius storm filled with replicas of Gungnir made from mana and world energy. But due to his current rank and the skill's rank being upgraded, the radius was 6 kilometers. Even though the replicas weren't as big as Alistair's spears, all of them carried the same strength as the original Gungnir. Originally, this was an overpowered attack skill to destroy thousands of enemies all at once. But due to the sheer number and strength of the vampire faction leader's own skill, Khan had to use it to defend himself instead. Bang! Clatter! Clang! Shatter! The maelstrom of darkness-black spears clashed against the downpour of vermilion-red spears, shattering the mountains and shaking the reality from their grand destruction, as both skills were equally matched in strength and caliber. This brat, my skill is legendary rank, but his is only saint rank. But to face and even match with my blood palace of spear, it will evolve into a very powerful one that could turn the tide of battle on its own, thought Alistair with a grim expression. Although he acknowledged it, the faction leader had a sour taste in his mouth. It meant that Khan would one day surpass him if he could match Alistair's skill even though it was a rank lower. No, I can't risk the future of my descendants by undermining the opponent. I won't kill him for the sake of my master, but I shouldn't be held responsible if he ends up crippled and mortally wounded. Enough to survive but never strong enough to fight anyone ever again. Thought Alistair had made a firm resolve in his mind. You brought this upon yourself by returning to this empire, Salvatore, decreed the vampire saint, and the very next moment, he unleashed one of his killer moves as soon as the 30-second stun effect ended. Boom! His aura shook the surrounding 30-kilometer area as he finally revealed his domain. Soon, the 50-kilometer radius was covered in bloody fog, while thousands of massive pillars made of erupting blood shot upward from the ground. Like an inescapable cage, Khan was now trapped inside Alistair's domain as the latter proclaimed in a domineering voice, "Spear domain of Achilles." Finally, the peak 7th stage vampire saint revealed his domain in the fight, staking the future of his clan and bloodline. Spear domain of Achilles. As soon as his words echoed in the surroundings, the dark red aura emanating from his body quickly spread out in a 50-kilometer radius. His potent world energy, filled with tumultuous killing intent, shot up like a massive pillar of fire, piercing the violent clouds in the sky. Rumble! Even the white lightning bolts now turned dark red as the cloud rumbled and the entire battlefield vibrated. Soon, the clouds started raining blood instead of water, and the grim killing intent reverberated the world around Khan and Alistair as the two combatants stared at each other with anticipation. Do not blame me for this, Salvatore. I might fall from grace with my master, but now, you're not leaving my domain alive, declared Alistair with a stern voice. Within the headquarters of the Pureblood faction, people who saw the battle through holographic screens gasped with surprise. Spear domain of Achilles. The last time Father used it was when they fought and killed the previous emperor over a century ago. At this rate, Khan will not survive this battle even if my father holds back, said Ismatrazel Morvanderijk. Not only he but the rest of the onlookers who saw it had their bodies rooted to the spot. They were only watching it from the real world, but even they felt a sense of dread for some reason. As everyone watched with bated breath, the scenario within the separate realm also changed. Crack! Rumble! The blood falling in the form of rain created thousands of streams and started converging together like a confluence of rivers. Shing! Shing! Multiple archaic magic formations appeared and started pulsating, their glowing red patterns giving the scenario an even more macabre feeling. Kid, the aura from those magic formations and the blood that gathered below it. I understand why my descendant fell despite being an 8th stage saint back then. This vampire, he's even better than any spear warrior present during my era, spoke Rathnar in Khan's mind with a tone full of concern. Why? What's coming? Asked Khan, his eyes focused on the massive magic formation. That is actually a summoning formation. A powerful weapon is being summoned. And not just any weapon, but a weapon used by a deity, revealed the former peak saint. What? How is that possible? Is he an apostle too? Asked Khan hurriedly. No, but he was certainly acknowledged by the deity of spears, Achilles. though it's more of a contractual relationship. The one who has been acknowledged can use the weapon of the deity, constrained to their ranks and levels, for a short time. But they have to sacrifice a decade of their lifespan every time they use it. Even back then, those who were acknowledged and formed the contract couldn't use their domain at will because that would trigger the use of the said weapon and they'd lose their lifespan. It was a method left only for the most dire of times. Explained Rathnar. How strong is it? Asked Khan. With his current rank and skills, it should be at least an attack comparable to a powerful strike from an intermediate 8th stage saint. You will need to use your other powers as well if you want to make it out alive. Responded Rathnar with a concerned tone. All right, I will make my judgment after gauging its strength first. Responded Khan. Their conversation took only 2 seconds in real time, and within those moments, the activation of the domain reached its peak. Come out, Pelion, commanded Alistair in a regal tone. Another weapon ripped straight out of Greek mythology on Earth. I can't even tell if this thing on Vantria created that saga on Earth or vice versa at this point. Next thing I know, Moses was also a key figure in Vantria or something. Spoke Khan and sighed as he prepared to face the incoming calamity. At the same time, a few 100,000 kilometers away in a distant empire. Achoo! Who's thinking about me? Spoke a man with a beard as he parted a river with his water elemental powers, creating a way for thousands of people to escape an army of soldiers chasing them. Back in the battlefield, boom! The ancient magic formation disappeared, but the ground split apart, creating a 1-kilometer-long crevice as an overwhelming power erupted, making even Khan tremble in fear for a moment. Tremble. Crackle. In front of his eyes, a massive 1-kilometer-long golden spear blade with a dark red staff-like handle, scribed with ornate and intricate ancient runes, started emerging. The red lightning bolts struck the spear again and again, but all they did was increase its domineering and oppressive aura. War dominance. Khan had to use war dominance for the first time in this battle just to throw off that pressure. Although his base stats made him comparable to a beginner 8th stage saint, without using buffs or special skills like war dominance, even breathing became hard as soon as Pelion made its entrance. This is the end, Salvatore. Even if it costs me my life, I will win, said Alistair with a grim tone. Kid, if you think this version of Pelion is overwhelming, imagine how powerful it will be in the hands of a peak saint, said Rathnar, hinting that even this much display of power wasn't Pelion's full strength. All right, stop hyping up the opponent. You're supposed to be on my side, retorted Khan. Soon, he started creating a plan in his mind to fend off and counter the overwhelming might of the opponent. Without using any powers related to my space law, bloodline ability buffs, different weapons, and the 5 techniques taught by Master Romulus, defeating Alistair will be extremely hard. It will be going back on my word if I do so. Lord Argos and even Cassandra won't have a good impression of me if I used my other powers. So I will need to think of the other way, thought Khan. It was right then, an idea came into his mind. Khan let out a mischievous smirk and revealed his own trump card. Soon, the 40-kilometer radius was quickly covered under a pitch-black dome made of pure darkness. It didn't offset the spear domain of Achilles but rather completely engulfed it. However, things didn't just stop there. Soon, the flow of world energy within the domain itself shifted as Khan spoke with a wide grin. Dimensional domain, first form, commandment of the king. As the imminent doom loomed in front of Khan, he decided to use his own domain. But instead of just revealing his domain, he straight unleashed the first form, commandment of the king. Usually, dimensional domain reduced 50% of all physical and magical stats of the opponents while raising all of Khan's by 50% at the same time. But the first form, called commandment of the king, additionally controlled all the world energy and mana as well as elemental attacks of both him and the opponent. And while doing so, it also kept absorbing the world energy reserves of the opponent that allowed him to not only expand but also supplement his own expenditure of said aspects. As a result, the enemies kept getting weaker, and Khan would keep getting stronger gradually. Khan did not hesitate after seeing Pelion, the weapon wielded by the deity of spear, Achilles. because although he was strong, he wasn't an ignorant fool. Besides, Khan promised not to use any other powers, bloodlines, laws of reality, and elements of nature, as well as the 5 techniques taught by his master. That was already enough of a handicap. At the end, he wanted to win for sure to cement his rule as the future emperor of the Rakos Empire. Feudal resistance. There is no way for you to escape death now, said Alistair, fuming with rage since Khan forced him to use his last resort. He was already very old, nearing the end of his lifespan, even as a peak 7th stage vampire saint. At best, he had over 20 to 30 years left to live. Unless he broke through and became an 8th stage saint, there was no other way to prolong his life anymore. And now, because of Khan, he was forced to sacrifice 1/3 of his remaining life, just to safeguard the future of his clan and bloodline. Is this the size of a deity's weapon? Why does this look short? Questioned Khan to Rathnar, unfazed by Alistair's threats. Because of the limitations on the rank of the summoner. If I used it at the prime of my strength, the weapon would be at least 15 kilometers long since it's a spear. Also, he's just borrowing it for a while. It's not like he's an apostle or earned the spear's ownership. Remember, deities are on a whole different scale. You can't even come close until you become a demigod first. Explained old man Rathnar. Swoom. Under Alistair's command, Pelion revealed its horrifying aura and froze the reality itself, Khan included. Swoosh! He quickly reappeared 30 kilometers away in the sky, escaping the caging pressure. How terrifyingly strong. Even Muramesa, an ancient rank weapon, can barely attain half of this insurmountable pressure. I'll need to be on the offensive from the start, estimated Khan within a moment. Boom! He released his own aura to break from the pressure and soon held Gungnir with both hands. Meanwhile, Alistair turned Pelion horizontal and injected his blood-red world energy into the spear of the deity. Leave nothing behind, he commanded in a cold voice. Shoot! Boom! While rupturing the reality itself, the almighty and majestic spear shot forth like a ray of light, instantly covering 30 kilometers in a millisecond. Bang! And before Khan could even use Quicksilver, he was impaled by the weapon. The shockwaves shattered the realm as reality itself cracked. 15 seconds later, sizzle! The entire 5-kilometer radius was simply evaporated, as nothing but an endless crater remained. However, flutter! Khan emerged in the middle of the sky, at least what was left of him. Squirm! Half of his torso was gone, and even the legendary rank dark gray longcoat he wore was torn in half. His instant regeneration kicked in and started rebuilding his body from the bones to the blood cells. Impossible! How can he survive that? Exclaimed all the onlookers. Even Alistair was no exception to this surprise. If not for Khan using phase shift at the last moment while his heart and brain were in the true dimension, that would have been his last moment. The weapon of a deity seemed to defy all logics of physics as well as the space-time continuum to have traveled 30 kilometers in a millisecond despite being so ginormous. Whoa! Barely made out alive, said Khan as soon as his tongue and liver were regenerated. Even with all his defensive abilities and magical damage resistances, it simply didn't matter. Even someone like Vildred, a royal dragon, wouldn't have come out unscathed from that attack. Khan then turned his head around and saw that Pelion was now 40 kilometers away from his location after piercing right through him. Whoosh! He used Quicksilver since he wasn't using his space law skills to reappear in front of Alistair. Stab! Precise thrusting! Khan didn't waste another moment and attacked the vampire saint using the skill that allowed him to pinpoint the weak points of the target during a thrust attack and do 30% critical damage on a successful hit. It was currently at SSS rank in terms of master, so the damage was 50%. Ugh! Groaned Alistair as he tried to defend himself. He didn't expect Khan to remain alive, let alone recover so quickly. Greater penetration. Khan used the passive skill to make critical damage by bypassing 20% of physical and armor defense while slashing and thrusting. On a successful hit, the total damage increased by 25%, so he was doing over 45% additional damage. Whoosh! Khan could feel that Pelion was returning to Alistair, and he had barely 5 seconds left to attack and injure Alistair. Impaling thrust. Khan instantly made a 15 consecutive strike attack combo and made a lethal strike at Alistair's chest, impaling him on the spot. Elemental Siphon. Khan used the now Saint rank skill to create 500 elemental spears made from his own darkness affinity. Due to the elemental transfusion procedure Vildred performed on him during the training within the Chamber of Exaltation, all the summon spears had an additional 400% total attack power. So Khan was doing an additional 500% damage without even using any bloodline skills. This was pure raw damage and not a single buff was applied. In the real world, those who saw it were baffled and shaken to their core. That type of skills and damage is beyond amazing. To think he'd match with Lord Alistair in terms of skills despite originally being a swordsman, spoke an elite clan leader of the Pureblood faction. However, things didn't just stop here. Whoosh! Pelion returned as the 5 seconds passed by, and now it guarded Alistair against Khan. Blurg! Ugh! The vampire faction leader threw up blood, his regeneration skills trying to heal his wounds. Each thrust Khan made injured him gravely. If Pelion wasn't by his side, Khan would have easily chopped off his head since Alistair was taken aback. One thing was adamantly clear. As long as Pelion remained by the Pureblood faction's leader, he was undefeatable. However, to overcome this overpowered weapon, Khan had an ace up his sleeve. Now that Khan was also forced to resort to his ace up his sleeve, given the current restrictions that he imposed upon himself just to prove his superiority and make a statement, the battle was reaching its conclusion. Boom! A black and violet aura erupted after leaving the conclave of heroes. Khan summoned the Dracos armor once again. His domineering and majestic aura emanated in the surroundings as a massive black dragon head made of pure darkness appeared above him, granting Khan a halo of a formidable force of nature. Akin to an apex predator setting its eyes on a weak prey, Khan glanced at Alistair, who was stunned to his spot in the sky. His now transformed white hair, the dark yellow draconic eyes, and the gray skin made him appear as someone who belonged to an entirely different species. What is that? How is that possible? Why does he have an aura of a real dragon? Shouted Ismatrazel. Is he even a human to begin with? Spoke Sale with his eyes widened with bewilderment. The same shock was shared by everyone who looked at Khan's appearance. Other than Vildred and Cassandra, most were rooted in their spots while Argos was simply bemused. But knowing Khan, how could he be satisfied by shocking people just once? Swoosh! The shock from his transformation wasn't even settled in. However, in front of everyone, 5 more Khans appeared at various distances, circling Alistair from different locations. Khan created a total of 5 cosmic replicas that had all of his skills, abilities, and bloodline abilities. In terms of strength, all of them were comparable to at least a beginner 6th stage saint. But because there were 5 of them, it was no different than having a beginner 7th stage saint. On top of it, they also had Gungnir in their hands, able to use all the spear skills that Khan exhibited just now. But things didn't just stop here. Activate the Pendragon formation, commanded Khan. His voice echoed, and soon, massive black and red pillars of auras erupted from all of their locations, connecting themselves and forming a blood-red magic formation that appeared in the sky at the end of each of the pillars. The activation condition was that to activate this formation, there needed to be at least 5 members to use the dragon bloodline effects. The other condition was that they also must have weapons and armor made of the same dragon. By creating the cosmic replicas, Khan had fulfilled this condition by simply tricking the rules of the magic formation. Pendragon formation activated. All of the host and his cosmic replica's physical and magic stats, as well as the effectiveness of skills, have been increased by 500% based on the participation of 6 members. Reported the system. Boom! A massive surge of aura erupted from 6 different ends. Each burst of terrifying auras decimated the mountains and canyons within 5 kilometers of their respective locations. As a result, the 30-kilometer area was flattened, barely leaving any rubble behind as Alistair's expression turned mortified. Khan was already on par with being a beginner 8th stage saint. But now his aura matched that of a man who was close to being a peak 8th stage saint. But what terrified him wasn't just that. All the other replicas of Khan now had their base strength raised by 5 times. That was equivalent to a beginner 7th stage saint. But because there were 5 of them in total, their cumulative strength could be compared to another beginner 8th stage saint. So if it wasn't already a dire situation where he was struggling against one 8th stage saint, now there were 2. What kind of bullshit is this? Why are even his doppelgangers so strong? Why do they all have the same legendary rank spear as if it's not a copy but the real weapon itself? This is beyond any logic I've seen. Even assassins and summoner classes can't create this many copies of themselves that possess similar strength as the original body. And there are 5 of them, spoke the vampire faction leader, his mind discombobulated. Even though he was commanding a literal weapon borrowed from a deity, it also had limitations. That's not good. I can't even tell which one of them is the real one anymore. Besides, Pelion is not something that can be used indefinitely after summoning. Just to maintain the summon, I have to expend 10% of the overall world energy even as a peak 7th stage saint. So I have only 10 strikes available at most, and I've already used one. The last strike should have killed even an intermediate 8th stage saint, but he's somehow still alive. And what's with that regeneration speed? How does a human have such a powerful healing ability that exceeds even us vampires? Plus those armors and weapons. This is not even a fair fight like this kid said before. Thought Alistair to himself long and hard as he contemplated his next moves. I need to finish this very quickly, because others don't know it, but there's only 1 hour limit till I can keep using Pelion. After that, I would be out of commission and won't be able to use my world energy for the next 1 month. He said to himself with a contorted expression. Borrowing a deity's weapon didn't come without restrictions. To wield an unparalleled strength that would be unmatched even by those many times stronger than oneself, an exorbitant price had to be paid. In simple words, there were consequences of possessing a power you shouldn't be able to. Around the same time, Rathnar spoke in Khan's mind. He's probably thinking about the limitations right now. I guess he must be mistaken that we don't know the time limit or how many attacks he can make going forward. He will try to end things very quickly going forward. Cited the peak saint. To his smug tone, Khan replied, which maintaining a stern expression on the surface. 10? I bet he still hasn't realized that I will keep getting even more powerful while he is drained out rapidly. At this rate, he won't be able to make even 7 moves. Responded Khan. Flicker. Without anyone even realizing, Khan used one of his skills to swap places with a different replica with even leaving an afterimage behind. At this point, even Argos and Vildred, who watched the battle from the real world, couldn't tell which one was the real Khan. All right, you old leech. Let's finish this quickly. He proclaimed loudly. As you wish, Salvatore. I'm also eager to crush you like a bug. Responded Alistair, his countenance focused and his eyes sharp. Flash. All the 6 Khans quickly launched themselves at Alistair from different directions. Both sides knew one thing for certain, that the next few minutes, they would give this battle an irreversible conclusion that would decide their future. Now that Pendragon formation had elevated Khan and his cosmic replicas to a whole new rank, the visible advantage Alistair had remained only on paper because the former himself now possessed the strength to face the deity's spear head-on without dying. Foul human! Taste my spear! Shouted the faction leader. Whirl! Pelion started rotating like a drill, its speed creating a vortex of intense winds, while the suffocating aura of the weapon only continued to rise. All of the 6 Khans on the other end seemed unaffected, even without using the war dominance skill. Shoot! Without wasting another moment, Alistair quickly attacked the Khan on his right side. The massive 1-kilometer-long spear simply disappeared, and before anyone could predict its trajectory, boom! It struck Khan, who was 12 kilometers away. Gotcha! However, despite the recent buff, this Khan did not survive and was pulverized in a mere moment. Whoosh! But unlike before, the spear didn't just go straight in the far distance. but reappeared by Alistair's side quickly. Shoot! He didn't want to give Khan another moment of respite and attacked the one behind him. Shatter! This version of Khan used elemental siphon and faced the deity's spear with all his might. But other than delaying it for a millisecond, he too got obliterated into nothingness. Swoosh! The vampire saint did not show a moment of complacency and directed his next attack on the Khan on his left. Bang! Just like before, this Khan, who floated above a mountain 12 kilometers away, was vaporized in the wake of the spear, not even leaving ashes behind. Another follow-up attack came, and the Khan on the front also fell. Alistair had made 5 more strikes, making 6 in total, while only 1 Khan remained. It's the end, you mongrel. You shall rue the day you decided to become my enemy, spoke Alistair with a wrathful tone and contemptuous eyes. Is that so? What gives you the confidence? Asked Khan with a light smirk. What gives me confidence? Are you blind? Can't you see that none of you can even fend off against my weapon? I have already destroyed all of them, so you who remains must be the real one. And now, I shall end it with this final strike, said Alistair with a stern but almost victorious smile. But it was right then, Khan spoke with a nonchalant smile. Who said that all of them are destroyed? Swoosh! Flutter! Before the feeling of ensured victory had even settled in Alistair's mind, all the destroyed Khans had reappeared in the exact same place, completely untethered and unharmed. In reality, Alistair had indeed killed all of them without any resistance. But these were not some standard doppelgangers of an assassin-class combatant. No, these were replicas made from Khan's cosmic ether. Even if destroyed, they can be recreated almost instantly without any backlash to Khan. Because what they needed wasn't world energy but Khan's cosmic ether itself, the one form of energy that Khan had in abundance, so much that it could last him for years without needing to be replenished. The last time Khan fought the hero of time, the ancient rank artifact called Warhorn of Confinement had sealed his space law abilities, cutting off his access to cosmic ether as well. Although it wasn't a space law-related ability in actuality, Khan still needed that connection to summon the cosmic replicas. Thus, he could create them almost indefinitely in this battle. Unbelievable! What kind of absurdity is this? Shouted Alistair in bewilderment. All these replicas possessed the exact same aura and strength, similar to the ones that came before, as if none of them were destroyed in the first place. No, I have only 4 chances left now. How the hell do I finish it? Thought the vampire saint to himself. It was right then, he remembered something and focused his gaze on the one who floated above a canyon on the left side. Alistair closed his eyes and used his vampiric senses to confirm his suspicion. That's it. The others may have his exact aura and even give the same scent, but unlike a human body, they do not have any blood. If I had relied on my natural instincts in the first place, I would not have wasted all those chances, spoke Alistair to himself, and without any warning, he quickly made his next attack. Shoot! But as if already expecting it, Khan had already readied a skill of his. Spear Summon Mirage. Clamor. This was now a Saint rank skill that allowed Khan to summon 500 elemental spears. Each spear was 100 meters in length, and their base element could be changed during battle. So Khan had mixed both darkness and lightning this time to face the deity's spear. The current radius of this skill is 35 kilometers, and the Khan could willingly control every single spear within this perimeter. Clank! All these spears quickly stacked themselves on each other, and in a second, their entire collectiveness created a body akin to a whole 1 kilometer-long Gungnir itself. Shoot! Since this was Khan's real body, the effect of this skill was no different than a full-powered strike of an intermediate 8th stage saint. Boom! Both Pelion and the gigantic Gungnir clashed, rupturing and shattering the reality itself. The shockwaves and explosion that erupted from their clash completely destroyed and pulverized the surrounding 10-kilometer radius, wrecking both the ground and the sky. But unlike before, this time, the deity's spear was not only stopped in its charge, but also blunted to a degree that the spear's blade almost split apart into 2. The gigantic Gungnir on the other end, was dismantled as the majority of the 500 spears were simply vaporized. Arg! Alistair groaned as he received backlash from Pelion being damaged. Not only was it a summoned weapon, but it was also tied to his life force due to its summoning condition. As a consequence, Alistair's body took a massive hit and he spurted out blood from his mouth and nose. He watched Khan showcasing an obscenely smug grin afar. "Don't feel like this is your victory. Your death is inevitable," spoke the pureblood faction leader. Swoosh! But before he could utter another word, all the other 5 Khans that he had forgotten about in the meantime had appeared right around him. Stab! All the spears that these cosmic replicas held pierced his body. 2 of them stabbed both of his thighs. 2 more stabbed his deltoids, making his arms inoperable. And the final one stabbed the middle of his back, the spear passing right through his chest. "Arg!" groaned Alistair, his entire body covered in his own blood. Flicker. The real Khan finally appeared in front of Alistair. His left hand pointed Gungnir's tip at Alistair's head. "My death is inevitable?" "No, Alistair," said Khan sarcastically. Khan then raised his right hand in the air, his thumb and middle finger almost touching. "I am inevitable." Snap! With the snap of his fingers, Khan overturned the scenario of the whole battle. Forget waiting for Alistair to drain out his world energy or go as far as the 7th attack from Pelion. The struggle was already concluded. Spurt! The moment Khan snapped, all 6 spears lodged in Alistair's body drilled in and created a burst of blood like a fountain. Soon, 6 visible gaping holes appeared all over the spots where the spears were impaled, each sized as that of a fist. Bleg! Alistair threw up blood incessantly while his quivering personage slouched in front of Khan. Gungnir's blade had basically skewered him, readying for the barbecue. But since Khan wasn't into eating bats, the vampire saint fell from the sky. Boom! A massive crater was left behind, and as the dust settled, Khan slowly descended from the sky. Shatter! Crumble! Because of his sudden lethal injuries, the summoning failed, and the massive 1-kilometer-long Pelion simply crumbled and spread across the battlefield like ash. And due to this abrupt setback, Alistair received a massive backlash on his body, severing his connection to his remaining world energy reserves. The mighty faction leader had now become completely helpless to the point that even a random person who couldn't use mana now held the ability to end Alistair's life. Cough! Alistair lay on his flat back, looking at Khan while throwing up blood mildly. Wriggle! His inherent regeneration kicked in, and the holes started healing at a visible rate. But unlike Khan, who had the instant regeneration skill from Thulu, Alistair's was far inferior, quickly surmising that he would need dozens of minutes to heal completely. Swoosh! Khan summoned Gungnir in his right hand again and pointed at Alistair's harrowed face. "Decide now, you old bloodsucker. Do you admit defeat? Or should I splatter your brains on this ground with a final hit?" asked Khan domineeringly. I will never," said Alistair, his clothes now completely drenched in his own blood. "Ha! Don't say that I didn't give you a last chance. Whatever may have come, you would at least be alive to lead your clan and hold their sovereignty together. Do you perhaps think that your son will be able to hold command after your death?" asked Khan with a cold stare. Unfortunately, people do have to pay filial piety even if they had no say in these matters. Since people won't be able to blame you after I end your miserable life, their fangs would turn to your son and grandson. And honestly, I wouldn't even pay much attention to what happens going forward since there are other 5th stage saints in your clan as well as the pureblood faction. I only need chess pieces to do my bidding, doesn't matter whose blood they carry in their veins," declared Khan coldly. Shock! It was right then. A wave of realization hit Alistair. If he chose death at the moment due to his pride, the obvious result would be his direct lineage bearing the burden of his defeat. His death would be meaningless, as everyone would blame his family for the fall of the clan and the faction itself anyway. When someone's fate was turned to that of a slave because of the actions of those who were supposed to lead them, no loyal person, even if they belonged to the same family, would be able to contain their rage and vent out their anger on that person's direct lineage. At best, Ismatrazel would be able to contain the anger within the Vanderite clan. But what about the fury of all the other faction clans and their leaders, whose fates were already sealed? With Alistair dead and Khan confirming that he wouldn't interfere, who was there to protect the Vanderite clan from their wrath? Forget the other clans, even the Elders' Council and family members sharing the same blood with them would try to assassinate his son and grandson. In the best-case scenario, Ismatrazel would have to abdicate his position as the leader and would be exiled from the clan. Yet it wouldn't ensure safe lives for them either. So on one side was a cliff, on the other was a valley. No matter whether he chose to die for any selfish or justified reason now, their fall was inevitable. Would you spare my clan? No. Would you ensure their safety if I admit my defeat and decide to serve you from here on? Asked Alistair while barely managing his breaths. Khan, in return, looked down, staring right in the vampire saint's eyes and replied, I might entertain that thought, not because you're begging, but because there was a time I considered your grandson a friend. Ironic, isn't it? In all of your years, the saving grace came not from your strength, authority, or your prestige, but through your grandchild whom your entire clan deemed unworthy to lead till now, said Khan stoically. Alistair was shaken with surprise, because till now Sale was indeed seen as an incapable heir by all of them. He had neither the talent, the spirit, nor the heart of a warrior. If Vivian hadn't betrayed their clan all those years ago, Alistair wouldn't have minded naming her the future heir of the clan after letting his son take his spot. Yet that useless grandchild became the sole reason why Khan would even show mercy and safeguard their lives. I, Alistair Moore Vanderrake, admit my defeat, declared the vampire. In the real world, Vildred, Cassandra, and all the other members of the Pureblood faction watched the end of the battle. From the opposite side, Argos looked at his disciple with a consoling gaze. Not because he was disappointed in one of his former disciples, but because he knew that Alistair never had a chance to win. If anything, Khan was entertaining the vampire by giving himself too many handicaps. Within the realm, Khan spoke again. Before you get any funny ideas after returning to the real world, let me tell you something very important, he said stoically. Swoosh! He reappeared in the sky, much farther from Alistair, and suddenly, boom! The whole realm shook as Khan revealed his full power. Right now, everyone was shaken to their core, excluding Argos and Vildred, because what emerged was no man. A titanic figure, representing an amalgamation of unfathomable powers and bloodlines, stood on the battlefield, because Khan had assumed the form of the Apostle of War. In the sky, he also created the Black Sun while summoning all his weapons, gauntlets, bow and shield, each being a kilometer long and tall on their own. On top of it, Khan also used Descent of the Martial God to raise his aura to that of a peak 8th stage saint. The battle we just had, declared Khan like an absolute monarch. You made me use only 10% of my power. In all of its glory and overbearing might, Khan divulged and displayed his full strength to Alistair and all the onlookers who watched from the real world. This ginormous form, called the Apostle of War, that was made from 5 different bloodlines as well as had armors and weapons that seemed outrageously powerful. There was also a black hole sucking in all the world energy in the nearby 40-kilometer radius, while Khan's own aura had reached the max, matching a peak 8th stage saint in every aspect. Yet beyond their disbelief, Khan proudly proclaimed that all of this was merely 10% of his power. That is impossible, exclaimed Alistair. How could a human's strength go beyond such a threshold where even I, a vampire, can't compare? And why are there so many powerful bloodlines? I feel like even someone like me will suffocate to death under such pressure. He muttered, his eyes filled with bewilderment. How is it impossible when you're seeing and experiencing it all by yourself in real life and time? If all of it was a mere illusion, then people watching from the real world wouldn't be able to see and sense it as well, would they? Asked Khan, using his wolf head in the Apostle of War form. Even though he stood 3 kilometers away from the fallen vampire, lying on his back, it felt as if Khan was merely a few steps away due to his humongous size. Even the dragon wings and the tail added more dread and lethality to his tyrannical appearance. Throughout the battle, I was using only limited skills, a single weapon, and didn't use any of my bloodlines or abilities that came with them. I also didn't use any artifacts or potions while prohibiting myself from using magic as well. There are also many powerful battle techniques that I chose not to use. Hell, I didn't even use the law of reality that I have a fourth enlightenment in. Do you know why I chose to use only 10% of my power? Asked Khan while in his samurai armor, folding his arms. Why? Asked Alistair with a bated breath. Khan took a pause, and a visible grin appeared on his wolf maw. Because you would have died way too quickly, even before you could summon your weapon, said Khan. Boom! Soon, he decided to use all of his different buffs, weapon and armor buffs, magic formations that increased his strength, and bloodline abilities that granted him an incomparable amount of explosive strength. His pressure remained that of a peak 8th stage saint, but the density as well as killing intent rose by at least 10 times. Khan also used War Dominance and Hunter's Domain to basically add the insurmountable aura matching that of an Overlord of Death. Even those just watching in the real world felt that aura and felt as if they were moments away from certain death. But 3 people had very opposite reactions to this. Very impressive again. Even I almost forgot that he is just a beginner 7th stage saint and not a peak 8th stage. Even though I haven't taught him how to maximize the effects of his bloodlines yet, the overall output is perfectly balanced. His potential is far more promising. No wonder Romulus was very proud after he finished training Khan. Thought Argos Belmont, the Revenant Sovereign, to himself. Ha! Boasting so shamelessly again. But it is befitting in a way. My disciple should at least show this much pride. Thought Vildred, the Lightning Dragon Emperor. Even he had to acknowledge that whether Khan used the normal or even the dragon magic exclusive to their empire, he was a very powerful individual who went beyond normal standards and understanding. Meanwhile, a particular someone had a mixed reaction. This is absurd. I know my beloved told me he trained very strictly during all those years when he was roaming the world, how he trained under extremely perilous situations even when he was mentored by exceptionally talented individuals like Sir Vildred, but his overall strength and abilities are no weaker when I summon a contracted deity. Even if I used both a summoned deity and my domain together, I don't think it would be possible to defeat him. Only when I'm a rank above him would it be possible to have a draw. There's also his space law powers that he didn't show at all. Thought Cassandra, both awestruck and gobsmacked by Khan's sheer strength. No, this can't go on. Cassandra, you can't fall behind your man. If I want to keep walking beside him and hold his hand with pride when he is fighting to save this world, I must become stronger. Even if I couldn't match him, I at least shouldn't be a burden on him. At that moment, with a clear goal in her mind, Cassandra resolved her heart to advance and achieve even greater strength. Although she joined Khan's cause of her own volition after learning the truth of his past, his identity as Hero of Darkness, and how their fates were changed compared to the original timeline, Cassandra had her own identity, goals, and expectations in life. She didn't choose to follow Khan just because her parents had basically betrayed her and he was the only one who truly loved her. No, because Cassandra also promised herself that she would never let anyone else decide her fate ever again. Accompanying Khan in his journey was just part of her choice since she didn't want to be stuck where she was, and her revenge was almost complete. She hated being a damsel in distress and had a sense of competitiveness, given how she was raised. But with Khan, she didn't need to compete. Rather, she wanted to walk beside him proudly as his partner in life. After a few minutes, Khan and Alistair were brought back into the real world by Vildred. Swoosh! Khan quickly locked eyes and spoke to Argos. I have one, and as part of the agreement, I should get to decide the fate of your disciples' clan. He spoke in a firm tone. Sigh. Argos sighed and looked at Alistair, whose wounds had healed, but his clothes were torn off, and his entire countenance resembled that of a haggard beggar at this point. Your victory was well-deserved, and I have no complaints. You at least had the modesty to ask me for a fair chance instead of refusing my request outright from the start. What you do with Alistair and his clan from now on, shall be completely decided on your own free will. I shall not interfere whatsoever," said the Vampire King, keeping his promise. "Do you hear that? What should I do with your clan now?" asked Khan to Alistair. "I have already lost. I have no other choice but to accept," replied Alistair in a despondent tone. But it was right then, Khan's tone suddenly changed. "What happens to your clan and bloodline, I shall discuss that later. But out of consideration for the past you have with Lord Argos, I shan't use the stigmata of bloodlines on your clan and descendants," declared Khan. Shock. Not only Alistair and the rest of the pureblood faction, but also Argos was taken aback, baffled by Khan's proclamation. "Since after today, I will have a lot more pressing matters to pay attention to. Because tomorrow," said Khan and revealed a historic event in the Rakos Empire's history, "will be my coronation as the new emperor." The following day, a new dawn arose for the Rakos Empire. To many, it was like a sweet dream that all of them collectively had, and the new dawn would be the nigh end of it. Many of the adults didn't even sleep, given how much adrenaline and a sense of blissful joy were still coursing through their bodies. Many were still watching the repeated broadcasts of the battles Khan and his entourage had with these mighty beings, checking all of them one by one and etching those memories in their minds as if they would disappear tomorrow. How could they not behave so? Just 20 days ago, they learned the horrifying truth about their lives. That the system governing them, which was supposed to protect them and maintain law and order, was a carefully constructed jail cell, akin to a nightmare that none of them could escape from the moment they were born to the end of their life. And 10 days ago, they all witnessed the bittersweet reality when the first wave of protests started. The powerhouses of these clans, factions, and even the government officials who were supposed to be working for them, oppressed them openly, killing over 100,000 citizens across the empire and arresting millions just because they voiced their discontent and mistrust after how Whisper exposed their lies and deceit that had been shackling them for generations. And when all hope was lost, showed up the one man who was rumored to have been chosen as the true successor and tested by the founding fathers of the empire themselves. Having hoped for better days and forced to eat dirt by these so-called servants of the people, they all had lost the will to even resist. But yesterday's historic upheaval that the whole empire witnessed with their own eyes, whether it was return of the man whom they all thought dead over 5 years ago, whether it was him and his allies not only fighting but thoroughly and overwhelmingly dominating them within the battlefields and letting the common populace witness how these godly entities called saints were thrashed like defenseless critters by Khan and his subordinates, none of them felt real to most of them even now. Yet, many came to realize that the monumental shift in the reins of the empire was now evident. Would their lives and fates be changed for the better, or were their wishes to have a better future destroyed but another agent of oppression? No one knew what the new ray of light that touched their faces this morning would bring. As noon approached, the entire empire suddenly experienced the quick and out of nowhere, whether it was the governmental officials, law and order, soldiers who usually patrolled the streets of villages, cities, they seemed to be in a hurry to prepare for something big. Rumble. The skies suddenly started rumbling, and wheezing noises shook the atmosphere. Many people walking across the streets, mostly discussing what happened yesterday, lifted their heads. And all of them saw dozens of giant warships, used only by the top brass of the government and military during a great crisis, such as wars with another empire. But today, these massive and towering ships that spanned for a couple of kilometers in length while carrying thousands of soldiers and crew, hovered in the sky for a different reason. Dear citizens of the Rakos Empire, this is an edict of the rightful successor and our true leader, chosen by the first emperor and the first sage. This evening will be a grand procession marking a monumental event in our history. Today, we all shall witness the coronation of our Lord and Savior, Khan Salvatore. He will formally assume the position as the new emperor of the Rakos Empire this evening. You are all welcome and requested to watch this ceremony since our new emperor wishes to address some extremely important matters regarding the direction and fate of our empire going forward. Our Lord hopes that you would honor him with your presence in public places, as the broadcast of the ceremony will be shown across the whole empire. With that loud proclamation, The warships conveyed the intentions of the man who had won their hearts already. And instead of feeling fear from seeing these ginormous warships, citizens across the empire, whether in towns or metropolitan cities, felt a sense of relief as well as certainty. Because the words in the announcement didn't seem overbearing, akin to that of a dictator, but a humble man who hoped, wished, welcomed, and requested their presence to witness his coronation. Besides, the shock and elation from yesterday's events hadn't even set in, but Khan was already quick to solidify his position. Even those unrelated to government, noble clans, business organizations, or any form of authority were curious because they were all expecting an inevitable change in the established reign. Some were hopeful, while many were skeptical because they had been lied to too many times. This fear stemmed from having their faith in the government and the system being broken recently. So the last thing they wanted was another replacement for a tyrant government that had jailed them without chains around their necks. Whoosh! Soon, these warships started descending, and many flying vehicles as well as cargo ships came out of them, carrying decoration equipment and personnel clad in armor to create order across all the important places in these cities and towns. This phenomenon took place across the entire nation, where stations were set up across all the important places, security was provided for people to peacefully watch everything, and decorations were set up as if it were a cultural event for their whole civilization. But the biggest change was seen at the capital of the empire, Rathna. It was comprised of many provinces, and the span itself was close to 1,000 kilometers. Khan himself had been active only in the Rukhan province during his initial stay at the capital. The preparation continued until the evening finally came. The procession ceremony finally started. 10 minutes later, with loud horns and trumpets, the broadcast finally began as holographic screens appeared everywhere, while billions of citizens eagerly watched. My fellow citizens of the Rakos Empire, a firm, stoic, regal, and majestic voice echoed across the whole nation as a handsome man, adorning a dark gray long coat, appeared on the screens. With a youthful and charming smile, he began his greeting. It's been a while. 10 minutes ago, Rathna, the capital of the Rakos Empire, was filled with joy and enthusiasm as people marched over the streets. All the provinces and sectors within those regions populated by the people, comprised of dozens of species, races, and parts of society, had their hearts beating fast with anticipation. The coronation ceremony of their would-be emperor was just minutes away while they all waited just to take a glimpse of him. At the center of Rathna was the Senate of the Rakos Empire, spanning over 12 kilometers and having over 35 monumental buildings acting as headquarters of all the major governmental institutions. Millions of people entered and left this place every day. But today, the reason for their gathering was different. For today, they were here to witness history in the making. In the center, a massive white and pristine arena, similar to a coliseum or a football stadium, housed close to 200,000 people. Dang! Buzz! Bang! Sound of drums, trumpets, and war horns filled the surroundings, while at the end was a large rectangular podium. All the major people in the entire empire, such as law officials, military commanders, nobles, aristocrats from various sectors, royal knights, and saints from all over the empire, gathered in a grand ceremony. Step. Heavy and loud steps filled the central pathway as hundreds of knights, adorning golden armors while brandishing swords, spears, and shields, marched towards it while covering both sides of the path. At the same time, they escorted a man in a royal dark gray long coat as he walked steadily with a dignified and charismatic face. Beside him walked Cassandra as his partner, looking just as beautiful but also domineering. Behind him, all 12 of his subordinates, in their real appearances this time, followed with pride. They were not hiding their real face this time, unlike they had to do back in the day with 7 Deadly Sins or Misthios Mercenary Association. Today, they emanated strength and authority on their faces. Both Vildred and Argos also followed behind this entourage with their own group of saints from the Belmont Kingdom. Step. After reaching the podium, Khan, who was now the center of attention from all these important figures of the empire, finally appeared on the broadcasting screens, his charismatic smile appearing all over the empire. My fellow citizens of the Rakos Empire, it's been a while. spoke Khan with a blissful joy on his countenance. Woo! Yeah! All hail Khan Salvatore! People started shouting and cheering as soon as they saw Khan appear on the broadcast screens. The recent events leading to this coronation ceremony aren't unknown to anyone at this point, and I know most of you were surprised by the sudden announcement of me assuming the role of the new emperor of the Rakos Empire, said Khan as he outright addressed the most important issue from the very beginning of his speech. Before anyone starts asking questions, I shall explain why I'm abolishing the democracy and re-establishing imperial rule again. He spoke in a firm tone. All of you have already seen and suffered from this so-called freedom and democracy in the past 100 years. The leaders you chose were not the ones who should have won. And even if the ones you truly voted for and won abandoned their duty and committed just as much corruption and crimes against you, the people of the empire like the culprits who created this system. His voice echoed across the empire as people nodded their heads in response. It is already a failed model because whether imperialism or democracy, the ones who truly control the nation are the same set of oligarchs, such as nobles, the aristocrats, business organizations, and the military leaders. Only the name of the system changes, where they give you an illusion of choice, but in truth, they control everything as well as cut off every path that could grant you true freedom and justice. His resolute words shone a light on the system that everyone had come to hate at this moment. Khan then addressed the next important issue. Imperialism is no different. The tyrant emperor of 100 years ago was a prime example of how if the individual leading the empire is a maniac who gets pleasure from causing wanton bloodshed and lets his pride control his mind and judgment, that it would bring nothing but ruin to all the population. Just like democracy, imperialism is also another double-edged sword, said Khan as he made the reality of the world known to all. So why am I declaring myself as the emperor instead of resorting to that kind of governance system? Am I trying to be another tyrant who would end up oppressing you? He openly questioned. Those words quickly alerted everyone's minds, because Khan wasn't giving them some fake flowery speech, but talking about the actual problem. No, I have accepted this form of governance solely for a vital reason. First of all, look at these people, he said. Soon, the projection artifacts focused on the particular group of people and their faces, as well as factions appeared all across the empire through the holographic broadcasting screens. Whether it was Alistair, Jeremiah, Joseph, the governmental officials, all the once almighty and prestigious nobles, clan leaders, including their heirs, and officials who held top positions across various institutions. Yesterday, something happened that none of you were aware of as it took place behind your eyes and ears, said Khan. Soon, for the next 10 minutes, Khan will explained he used an ancient rank artifact and tied all these people to his bloodline. How these people, whose lineage controlled and reigned over their empire for centuries, were now reduced to mere slaves. Gasp! Shock! Most of the populace was bewildered beyond belief. To hear how their future leaders had enslaved basically millions of people in just a single day. Some of you might call me a merciless or a heartless person for doing so. Some will argue whether the children and the future generations of these people suffer for the actions of their predecessors, said Khan as his head looked around all the attendees in the stadium. Well, you're wrong. One day they too will inherit the wealth, the luxury, the accessibility, and lifestyle similar like their parents and families. I'm not going to take that away from them, but at the same time, why should they reap the benefits of the crimes committed by their predecessors with no cost? He questioned with a stern voice. Everything in this world comes with its own price and consequences. Since their forefathers ruined the lives of billions of people, this will be their penance while still having the benefits. I'm not jailing them or killing them just because they have blood ties with these people. What I'm offering them is salvation. If they can't even do that, then they don't deserve any form of forgiveness from us. He firmly stated his stance. As for these people, they all thought they were above you. They orchestrated and thrived upon the misfortune of others while you struggled to make ends meet. They had cozy sleeps in their mansions while the roof on your house was leaking under heavy rain. They robbed you all of the opportunities and future that could have been yours if the system were just and fair to everybody. So instead of putting them in chains, Why not make them work for the rest of their lives to make up for their sins against the people of the Rakos Empire? He stated with an obvious smirk. Yeah. Yes. Make these bastards pay, shouted a wolfkin in a random city. Hell yeah. They should serve the people till the end of their days, shouted the elf who spoke in the tavern yesterday morning before the protest began. People witnessing across the empire loudly cheered, their outcry shaking cities and towns equally. The rage and hatred they held towards their oppressors were finally showing up on their faces without any remorse. Their soon-to-be emperor just publicly humiliated everyone, abhorred by the people of the empire. Khan then continued, why should 100,000 soldiers need to die to an enemy force or a wave of monsters when we have these saints from these prestigious clans who could do the work? Whether it's loss of life or resources, these people will pay back 100-fold to the people of the empire in the name of service. Whether working to better your lives or fighting on the front, all these bastards who benefited from your flesh and blood all over these years will have to bleed their own under my new regime, iterated Khan in a majestic tone. The reason I'm establishing the imperial rule is to divert all the authority to myself, since I'm the only one with the full power over their lives. So I can keep making them work to the bone and make up for their sins. He explained with no sense of guilt. I know some of you may worry tomorrow that it's too much power for one individual. But I do feel like I have earned the right, because what you saw yesterday wasn't an overnight success. It took years of training, many times facing death over and over, just to become strong, planning and calculating everything until I could finally make a move. All for what? Am I doing this all for myself? Am I doing this to reign over the people like a monarch? He loudly questioned all the witnesses. No, because unfortunately, this is the most effective way for enforcing the will of the people while punishing these transgressors for the damage they've caused to you, the hardworking people of the Rakos Empire. He stated, and the very next moment, swoosh, out of his space ring, Khan took out a squarish, quartz-like artifact. Before I wear the crown, there is someone who would like to talk to all of you. Shing. Shimmer. The artifact started emitting an image of a man with a white grizzly beard, clad in white and golden armor, and holding a massive greatsword at the front, plunged in the ground. People of the Rakos Empire. This is the very person who created the home we all stand upon. Please, pay your respect to. Khan, in a regal yet courteous tone, revealed the name of the entity as he himself kneeled on the podium. Rathnar Whitlock, the first emperor.